Like to open the October 10th, 2019 Planning Board session. Roll call, please, Phil.
Sure. Chair LaFaro.
Present.
Vice Chair Finnerty.
Present.
Secretary is here.
Oh,
Board Member Blaney.
sorry.
Board Member Long.
Present.
Board Member Burke.
Present.
And Board Member Zuccarelli.
Present.
We're all here.
Full board. Great, thank you. Would you rise for the pledge, please? Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any minutes, Mr. Secretary?
Unfortunately, no.
No minutes.
No
Okay,
minutes.
we'll just move forward. Jackie, are you going?
Good afternoon. Yes, I am going to handle my items, and then I do have 3 of Anthony's items that I'm going to do. I'm going to do them mostly in order, though.
Okay, so the first one is
Jack Mauer.
Mauer, number
Yes.
1.
This is a 3-lot subdivision on 545 Main Street in the hamlet of Quiog. They were deemed incomplete by the planning board on August 8th. They now have submitted the necessary map revisions and common driveway plans, and so I'm recommending that they be deemed complete and set a final hearing for November 14th.
November
14th, 2019.
November 14th.
Yep.
Okay, motion
Motion.
by Robin.
Second.
Second, Gloria, and all in favor. Opposed, abstentions. 7 in favor. Oh, we're all here.
Great.
So are you going right into Anthony's?
Yeah, I'll do Anthony's. I'll just do it
Sapula
mostly in
property?
Yes, so this is number 3. This is really a procedural, you looked at the site plan for this for, what's number 2? Oh, no, I'm sorry, Matt is doing that one.
Didn't.
I'm doing number 3.
This is what came
Moon
up.
Road.
Hit mail.
He kind of divvied them up between us, so sorry.
422.
So number 3 is 422 Dune Road.
Did you flip for them?
Yeah. This one you looked at, so this was the requirement for each of these single-family homes to have a site plan based upon the covenant that was required through the subdivision. So you have already actually approved the site plan, which legalized the elevated platform
Which one do we have?
and the generator, and also asked for the construction of the elevated catwalk. So there were some discrepancies between who had jurisdiction over the wetlands permit because it's a single-family residence, but after review, it was determined that since the planning board issued site plan approval,
I don't have to do anything.
that
It's the one
I think you ought to just wait a second.
For some reason.
Good.
All right, okay.
I'm sorry, because,
Hang on for
just
just a
hang on
second.
for
Yeah,
a
we've
second.
got,
Just hang.
the people are working, but the machines aren't.
Just keep advancing it.
as is always the case.
And I can work without.
See?
Are we all okay now?
No, I'm just,
No.
I'm almost there. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure it's loading now. So
We have technical difficulties. The digital world.
it's always paper.
That's just what I've jumped into.
Okay,
Go ahead.
let's go, move
Okay.
forward.
All right,
422 Dune
So
Road.
422, there was a covenant through the subdivision that created these lots, that each lot has to go through site plan approval, because there's extensive wetlands along the north of these.
All right.
So you actually already approved the site plan approval, and I have the plan if you'd like to look at it. But there was jurisdictional discrepancies. Who was going to issue the wetland permit? Because it's a single-family residence, would it be the Conservation Board or would it be the Planning Board? But it was decided, since the Planning Board had approval authority for the site plan, that the Planning Board actually should be the one to issue the wetlands permit. So you've already approved the site plan, so this is really just procedural to approve the wetland permit that runs simultaneously with the site plan. Okay, so I have a resolution to that effect, with all that, and a finding that it complies with Chapter 325 in regards to wetlands setbacks.
Is that in the
And,
packet? It's not.
No, it's not.
It's not.
422 is not. not on,
Oh, I apologize.
In the
But
computer.
do you want me to read through briefly what Anthony has prepared? Or do you want to look at it?
Well, what's the substance of?
yeah, it's just it's issuing a wetland permit? is
Issuing a
that-
wetland permit for the site plan that you already approved for the catwalk and the generator and platform. Do you remember this was the one with the platform in the
Yeah.
front of the house?
Yeah.
That you guys
It
like
goes
asked to
through-
screen, and then this is at the very end. This is by camera on beach.
Yeah, it's on the Bayside.
Yeah. Sorry, you have the aerial.
Yep.
This is before,
aerial's
this is
very
before,
hard to-
when was this done originally?
Prior to
Okay,
your
that's why it
being
doesn't-
on the board.
doesn't-
Okay, so we approved this generator right here, and then they asked for the catwalk that's going to go to Mecox Bay.
So any conditions on this approval?
You did have conditions, so the wetland permit will be consistent with the conditions of the previous site plan, of the previous site
The
plan.
one we approved. Same conditions.
Same conditions.
Okay. Is
Just
everybody
written up for
comfortable with
wetland
that?
permit.
Okay. Moved by Dennis,
Second.
second by
Phil.
Phil. All in
I
favor?
did the same thing for years. They both sound the
They
same.
throw their voices.
I know.
7 in favor.
Great. Sorry, I thought that was in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Now you're going back to,
So I'm going to do Metro Storage, but with Metro Storage, we have to do the SECRA prior to deeming it complete. So Metro Storage, the SECRA is actually, because it's at the end of the agenda, is agenda number 21.
oh, it's 21.
Yes. And so I have here, it is an unlisted action. Anthony has discussed with me that he spoke to the applicant. The planning board was looking to enhance the architectural facade with stone around the bottom of the building. So the applicant is here, and they have said that they are in favor of having the stone banned, and, will agree to, any of those recommendations that the planning board had that was discussed at the last meeting.
Great.
So I have a neg deck prepared here that basically says there will be no or small to impacts on all of the issues. If you'd like, I can read through them. It is not in conflict with any land use plan. It will not have any change on the use of intensity. It will not impair the character or quality of the existing community. Anthony is going to make a finding that the architectural, basically in this neg deck form, that the architectural will be in character with the surrounding neighborhood with the facade improvements. So he's going to make a finding regarding that. It does not have any impact on any critical environmental area or mass transit. Will also not cause an extreme increase in the use of energy, and will not impact the private or public water wells, will not impair the character of historic or archaeological resources, will not adversely change the natural water bodies or groundwater, or potential flooding, or have any impact on resources or human health. So we have a neg deck here, and Jackie, you can sign it if you're comfortable.
Sure.
Once we adopt that.
Do we adopt it?
Yeah, we'll have a resolution to adopt that, and then we'll move forward with a completeness resolution.
Okay, motion.
Motion by Zuccarelli, second by Dennis, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor.
That's assertiveness.
To
training
adopt
is pretty
the-
low.
That will adopt the negative declaration. And then the next agenda, so we'll go back to agenda item number 4, which now that we've completed the secret process and adopted a negative declaration, we can deem the application complete and set a public hearing for November 14th.
For November
14th.
14th.
Motion.
Motion by Phil,
Second.
second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor.
Now, we're doing double, we're adding a second meeting in,
There is a second meeting in November,
back,
but
right?
generally it's back to back, but we generally don't have a public hearing. So it's the 14th would be a regular meeting with a public hearing afterwards, and then the 21st would only be an afternoon meeting.
okay, no.
Okay, because that's right before
And Jackie,
We've only
Thanksgiving.
got 2 on
This is
the
the neg deck
14th
form.
so far. 3.
Black, you need black?
Black or blue? It's on the left side.
Jackie, the applicant wanted,
It would be, we
Yes.
use an application complete and then.
I have another question.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. Please come to the podium. Yeah. I thought it was about scheduling, sorry.
Good afternoon, Philip Butler, Farrell Fritz for the applicant. As Jackie stated, I discussed the changes to the architecture with my client. He is in favor of them. With respect to the stone band around the base of the building, the two sides are going to have a lot of those, bays. So he was requesting that if we're going to put the stone band, that we wrap it around the front and the rear, but not necessarily fully along the side, because it would be so broken up by the bay doors that it would really lose the effect. So if that's okay with the board, that's what he would propose.
You're gonna wrap it around the front,
And the rear.
until the first bay
First
door,
door.
and then we'll stop.
Okay, got it. And with respect to the windows, I thought that was also an issue, so he planned to put shutters on them, is that?
Good. Ooh,
Okay.
great.
The board is generally comfortable with the number of windows that are on the,
Yeah, and we can, if you can just submit architectural
Oh, we will.
renderings that show the changes, then they'll be able to review them.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll work that through the site in the work session.
okay.
Good, thank you.
Thank you
for
very much.
cooperating.
Thank you.
Okay. Next I have on is another secret and completeness combo. So this is the Peconic Paddler.
Item 6.
So this is on your agenda as number 20 for the secret consideration. I do have here another short form prepared by Anthony, and it is recommending again that no impacts, and I'll remind the board that this is also in the Riverside Revitalization Zone. So this is utilizing the incentives and the objectives in that plan, and it is receiving grant money for this as well. So we have a neg deck prepared that shows no impacts or very small impacts to anything, and I have another neg deck form for you to sign, Ms. LaFaro.
Wait a
So
second.
do you have to
Neck deck is not a.
have any, is the Riverhead Town Line close by?
Yes, so at the formal site plan review stage, we will be doing referrals to the Riverhead Town.
Okay.
Yes.
Not during secret at all?
And then planning commission.
Unlisted, you have the choice to.
Do you
But,
get- do you
but
get-
this is a finding basically that, well, they've already reviewed the GEIS for the Riverside Revitalization, the overlay district. So this is consistent with the GEIS that the town has prepared for that. So Anthony's basically prepared an unlisted action. You have the choice to coordinate with any involved agency, but they don't have approval authority, so they would be interested agency. But they will get a referral because they are
So are you saying
within
if
500 feet.
if something complies with the GEIS, it's automatically a neg deck?
Not automatically, but that's a finding we're making with this application because it is compliant with the Riverside Revitalization.
Even though it's
Zone.
specific to this site?
Yes, very specific. So there could be specific conditions that warrant more information. Yep. But I know you guys have just reviewed the pre-submission on this. So you issued that report very recently, I think it was in the summer. So we just had a hearing on it. There wasn't anything too major, just, we got the wetlands verification line, which we were waiting for. So now basically we're ready to move forward with SECRA. It is an unlisted action, so you have a choice to coordinate, but I think the only coordination would be, Health Department and DEC.
And who?
DEC.
The DEC. And what about the lot lines of the parcel itself?
There is a title discrepancy between the now town-owned land, once was county land, and the subject property, but we can deal with that through the site plan review. And that is actually it's a thin little strip near the wetlands, so it really doesn't have any bearing on the road frontage or development of the parcel. So we can handle it throughout the review.
Okay.
Yep.
Just as long as it doesn't get lost in the,
Yes,
as
in
long
the
as you make a
shuffle.
note
Yep,
of it.
mhm. Yep, so this is a negative declaration that's prepared. And
So a motion for a neg deck?
Motion.
Motion by Dennis.
Second.
Second by Zuccarelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor.
Are we doing completeness?
Yes, and then so under a separate resolution, it's under agenda item 6, which would be to deem it complete. Now, Anthony was proposing that we waive the public hearing as there was not substantial comments at the pre-submission stage. We are also looking at some time restraints due to the grant that has been received for this property.
For
So-
Peconic.
For
Will we
Peconic
do
Paddler.
like a 30-day?
30 days.
So he was recommending a 30-day written comment period if the board is comfortable with that.
Okay, motion deemed complete
Okay.
with a 30-day written.
Motion by Dennis, second by
Second.
Zuccarelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor.
Great.
Oh, okay.
Next I have on is an extension for M4 Lumber Holdings, which is number 8. And they are just working on finalizing their map requirements, and this would give them an extension until January 17th, 2020.
Motion.
Motion?
So they've had 2 years of extensions?
Yes, this is coming up to 2 years.
And is this health department hold up?
They already received health department approval, but they actually got us all the legal documents in the summer, so I've been waiting on the revised surveys from the surveyor.
And do they anticipate that happening in 90 days?
Yes. Yeah, they had just requested the maps, I think, at the end of the summer, based upon the legal documents that were required, so we're just waiting for those updates. I can tell the applicant that the next, if there is a need for the next extension, that they should come in and
Come in
report.
with an yeah.
Yeah,
That
I
would
can
be
tell
good.
them that, yes.
So, motion?
Motion.
By Robin, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
Great. Next I have on is pad construction. So pad construction, unfortunately had some title issues when they were filing at the Suffolk County Clerk's office that needed to be cleaned up, as well as some legibility issues. So there wasn't really any problems with the map that was prepared, other than there was, the county is getting very strict about legibility and copying. So if there's any lines that bisect words or any font that is not clear, they're getting very stringent on those requirements. So unfortunately, this map couldn't be filed as it was, so we're actually getting the revised maps, and we're doing an extension to keep it current, and then essentially we will be able to re-sign it, but there's no substantial changes to the map. It is the same map that the planning board approved, it just has some minor legibility issues, and the title issues have already been cleaned up. So they're asking for an extension. This would bring them until, this would be January.
This is number.
Number 9.
Number 9, pad construction. This is Priscilla Avenue. There's 3 non-conforming lots, and they're making it 2 conforming lots out of it.
So 90 days brings them to,
Yep, I'm sorry, I actually don't have the date, but I do have it on my computer. It's January,
January.
yeah.
Okay. So
January.
motion for the 90-day extension, motion by Dennis, second by
Second.
Robin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
Great. Next is REWP Court. Now, this is actually an old file map that is exempt.
Item 15?
Yes, item 15, that is exempt from old file maps. So I have some aerials in the resolution. It is in your package, but. So this is a request from the owners, which are highlighted in red on the aerials that I passed out. They are requesting to abandon the northern private road, which is basically adjacent to the fire district building to the north. The fire district has already abandoned their portion of the private road in the old file map of RWP Corp. Map number 641. So this would be a resolution of no objection to the abandonment of that section of Eckert Street.
Any questions on that? Motion to approve, motion by Dennis.
Second.
Second by Phil, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
Next, I have Parkside. Now, this has to come to the
Wait,
planning
wait.
board. Oh, sorry.
Going too fast.
Sorry.
What is it?
Parkside, which is number 16.
Item 16.
It's next in your packet.
Parkside.
Yeah, and I have color. You know what? This one's hard to see in black and white, so let me pass out. I have color aerials for you as well.
We'll pass them down.
So this isn't an O-file map. It is owned by Joseph Frederick Gaza, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 998-218.33. He is requesting to abandon all of the paper streets surrounding this parcel. So that would include Trinity Avenue on the east. On the southerly portion would be, the southerly portion on the north of the property would be Wampler Avenue, and on the westerly portion of Woodlawn, which is on the east side of the property, and all to the center lines. And also there's an unnamed road which is directly to the south, which is actually the boundary, the southern boundary of the filed map.
How does he get access?
This is for sending rights. So this is
he's
abandonment.
sending.
This is an abandonment. It has to come to the planning board because we do not have an open development section. So your review is required
Oh, this is
prior.
sending parcel.
Yeah, this is, so I actually zoomed out on the aerial so you could see the closest means of access, which is Wireless Way. So you'll see in the like northwest corner of the map, that cul-de-sac is actually Wireless Way. And then this is basically in the middle of the woods between Great Hill Road and Edge of Woods Road.
That's how
So
you
who
get
owns the
access.
property south of that? Is that town road or county
That's
property?
town. I believe it's town,
property.
yeah. Yeah, the green usually represents town, the yellow usually represents county.
What is it green for?
Town owned.
Lots of trails there.
Yep. Yeah, so this will be utilized for a sending parcel and will be preserved. He just wants to add the roads to it so that he can send additional
So what
square
does he
footage.
get out of it? How many sending rights?
He actually, the parcel.
Is that specified?
I looked it up. I don't actually have the specific size. I can put the size in the
Can you
resolution
put
if you'd
that
like.
size?
He only gets the center line. It's only in.
Yes, yeah, only to the center line, but
50%.
he is requesting the unnamed road to the south because there's no adjoining abutter within the map.
So he gets
You'll see
all
that, like the diagonal line at the bottom, he's asking for all of that because that's the boundary.
30-foot wide roads,
Yeah,
right? Some of them are 20.
yeah, yeah. Some of them are 25, some of them are 30.
yeah.
Some of the bigger avenues that are the north to south are 50. Yep.
So you'll add the size.
I'll add the size. Yeah, I
Okay.
actually looked it up. I think off the top of my head, it was around 20,000 square feet, and then he'll be gaining the square footage from the roads.
Okay. So a motion to approve the abandonment of the roads on the Gaza application. Motion by Dennis, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed,
It was
abstentions.
actually John.
It was John.
My voice hasn't gotten that low.
Second, John.
Throw me a bone every once in a while, you know.
All right, Dennis and Blaney. Got it. All right, last on the agenda, I have Vintage Vines, which is lot number 11. This is 78 Birchwood for the address.
That's number 17, a site disturbance. Is this the last of the site disturbances?
I don't think it's the last, but we're nearing the last.
They're not built out yet?
I was just going to say there's probably one more house to be built.
They're very close. and
Very
gen-
close to build out?
Very close, yeah. Now, unfortunately, this lot did get significant disturbance on it. It was unfortunately used as like a stockpiling for other products and masonry products, as well as it has a common driveway next to it. So because of that common driveway, they had to reach the lot, and they actually broke through the back of the lot to access through construction both lots. So unfortunately, this lot did get a lot of disturbance. They did actually make some really good effort, basically, to save some of the mature trees. I was there, and I can speak, they actually built some retaining walls around some of the trees to make sure that they wouldn't be impacted by the construction. But unfortunately, because of the common driveway, the lot in the back, and the stockpiling of masonry materials, as you can see in the aerial, this lot got significantly disturbed, almost to 100% of the understory. But we have since, I have since done 2 site inspections, and Matt actually also went out there when he was in the area last week, and the parcel has been completely revegetated, so.
Can we get a picture of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. I actually have pictures
At least
that I
it'll make
took.
us feel better after looking at this.
Yeah, yeah. And I have to admit, out of all of them, this one, it was, usually they do a very good job, and they try to keep the trees in the front, but it's hard when they're doing, most of the sanitary systems are in the front and the driveway's in the front. So you know how it is with the driveway, the
And
construction
utility
entrance.
trenches, too.
Yeah, so you've
Water
got,
and-
so the front is really hard for them to deal with, but they are keeping a majority of the mature trees in the front. But unfortunately, the understory does get kind of trampled. But on the lots that have like more road frontage and generally don't have a flag lot behind them, they have been making a good effort to keep the mature vegetation in the back.
Do we
So
get a
usually
bond
that's
on
like a
this?
little,
Is there a bond?
No, not on residential property. But they've already done all the revegetation. They've already done all the revegetation, and they have to comply. So anytime this comes back in, we'll be checking it for compliance with the aquifer protection. But they're permitted 50%, and now they have revegetated essentially 50% of the understory. And actually, I even asked them to bring in additional saplings, oak trees, to deal with some of the areas that did not have trees. You have to understand, too, with a lot of these trees, unfortunately, because this was all pristine, undisturbed forest, once you start taking out key trees for the building envelope, unfortunately, those trees were kind of relying on the neighbor tree. So once you take out some of those neighbor trees, you've got these kind of tall, spindly oaks that were like reaching for the sun. And unfortunately, sometimes they get compromised because of their root system as well. So there was like a couple trees on this site that did have to get compromised from the construction entrance. But they are, I have to admit, like I did see valiant effort to keep the mature trees, and they did keep, you know, some of the blueberry bushes intact in the corner, but a lot of the area did get disturbed on this one.
So is it ornamental stuff they put in, or did they put in
No.
native vegetation?
No, it's all low bush blueberry, oak trees, yep, a little bit of bayberry. What else do they have there?
This is based on what Marty Shea tells them for the area.
We're responsible as well now, but generally what we recommend is low bush blueberry and oak trees based upon this area.
Right.
So, yeah,
Okay,
yep.
so,
So this would be to approve the site disturbance as it is now compliant with the 50%.
Motion.
motion by Dennis, second by Gloria, all in favor? Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor.
And that's it for me. Yeah.
Sorry,
Thank you, Jackie.
I'm collecting.
So Matthew, are you first Mead? Christopher
Yes,
Mead?
seven is first. I have a couple of Anthony's that I'm going to handle for him also, but I'll do
Okay.
those after I do mine.
Okay, so number 7
Number
is
7,
first.
Christopher Mead.
Christopher Mead.
I have some handouts for you guys. Resolutions. That's all of them. And some handouts for me. Okay. Once everybody has it, I will get going because I know
No,
we have a lot of
wait,
stuff to
wait.
cover today. No, I'm not going yet.
And we've got a map packet.
Map packet.
Oops, I did just the opposite.
I know, that's all right. This for you. And don't break up the system here. And then we're coming down. that
Oh,
way.
yes, this is,
And you do the front
Yeah.
Kathleen. There you go.
okay, so your presentation.
Whenever you guys are ready.
Ready?
Good,
Everybody
okay.
ready?
This is a request for modification for an ag construction and wetlands permit that we approved, the planning board approved on June 26th of 2018. It's for an ag barn that's in the back of this property. They're looking to move the barn 73 feet to the west and sort of swap the location of the barn and the parking area. If you can see, the first map that you guys have is the barn in the conditionally approved area. And then the second page is where the applicant would like to relocate it. From what I can see in the initial review, they have the information that they need. This is just going to affect the neighboring properties more. The barn's going to move into the line of sight of the neighbor, more towards the center of the agricultural
reserve.
reserve. So, I mean, I think this would be appropriate time to have a public hearing so the neighbors kind of see what's going on next to them,
Right.
if they have any concerns. So this would be
All right, so
to...
the first location we approved.
Correct.
It had the
In
proper set,
2018.
it had the proper setback from the wetlands.
Correct.
Everything was resolved.
Correct.
And now he wants to move it further into the ag reserve,
Correct.
which is not something that we
We like.
like
Just
in
not
terms
generally
of,
approved towards the center.
Is there a
Right.
reason?
Yeah, I was
Is
just
it an
gonna
actual
ask that.
flip, or are they moving the whole
No,
lot?
they're
It's
moving-
it's
they're
a flip
moving-
and it's a slight shift as well.
And is there a
it's not
reason?
slight, it's 100 and some odd feet.
15,
Yeah, 73?
73 feet?
Yeah.
It's like a flip and then it's going to go up. But I have I have Wayne
So
here.
let's just talk a minute.
He might be able to better represent why. they
So
wanna
is
move it.
is the access the same?
Same access, yeah.
So it's just by flipping the building, you're pushing it, you
Further to the west.
accessing the other side of the building from the
Well, no,
driveway?
it's more than that. It's moving the building into the
Yeah,
ag reserve.
Yeah,
And away from the owner's house.
correct.
And by virtue of where it is, the access road has to change as well.
Yeah, well, the last sort of dog leg is getting pushed up a little bit
that's-
as the parking area is.
I've been trying
But the
to,
majority of the
yeah, I've been
driveway-
trying between the two to see, they look kind of the same,
Yeah,
but
it's
without
a little bit hard to
overlay.
read.
But it's 125 feet, which we approved from the wetlands. Now it's 170 feet, or 60 or 70 feet.
Yeah, it shows the setback on there.
Okay, I think we understand what it is. Wayne, would you like to speak?
Wasn't there some public comment
Oh,
Yes,
there's a lot.
there is.
A lot of public comment. Yeah, it was the initial, I initially suggested that it be located closer to, to the road to the north, but there was neighbors who didn't want to locate it there, so this is
Right.
where we settled on a location.
Got it.
So our clients came to us, as Matt indicated, we have approval. And as you know, it was the clients also a house right to the southeast. And what they're proposing is essentially flipping the barn to the other side of the parking lot. Approximately 35-foot change. And it was because they realized how close it was to their house that was going to happen. They've talked to the neighbor here. They have no objections or otherwise. My client, I told him that Matt called and said you might want to hold a public hearing. They don't see the necessity for it, but if that's what you're going to do, then we'll have a public hearing. He doesn't expect, again, people to the north didn't want this anywhere near the north.
Well, that's been
And-
resolved, yeah.
And this gentleman was okay with it here or in either location, so we don't expect any issues to be raised at the public hearing, so.
Okay, so when will we set a public hearing?
November 14th.
November 14th. Okay, any other questions on this?
Nope.
So we are
Deeming complete and setting a
Okay.
hearing for November 14th.
November 14th.
Motion.
Motion by Dennis and seconded by Zuccarelli.
How many public hearings do we have for the 14th? It seems like
This is 4? This is
That
the
hearing's,
4th.
that hearing's going to be heavy because we only have one public hearing.
Yeah, no, I,
Yeah, it
And
might
then
be
we only have
heavy.
one in December as well.
Right. And it is downstairs, everybody,
Yeah.
so.
well, the public hearing will be in the auditorium.
When is that moved?
The 15th, our next meeting, our next planning board meeting will be downstairs in the lunchroom, or the meeting room, for the day, and then for the evening session, it's in the auditorium, half of the auditorium.
Moving on to number 10.
Oh, I sent the packet down by mistake.
Oh, yeah, we sent the packets down.
Oh, jeez.
You gotta hold on to the.
Important one!
You have to remind us.
Really?
This is 7, we can,
Have an extra two here.
I think this is
Because
second
so
one.
you gave us two sets of
is there another
papers.
one?
Always,
So only one set should have gone down.
yes, just the maps go.
Here you go.
Keep the resolutions, please.
Okay, this side of the table has been very bad.
No, but we don't have anything either, we passed ours.
Do we have an extra of these? Because Kathleen doesn't have.
I thought I did 8.
We might have, but it might have gotten passed by
Yes,
mistake.
this one.
Here it is.
I have it on.
Okay,
They're all on the iPads
We
too, if
got
you
it,
want
we
to
have it.
scroll, but I know.
Well, and mine
You good?
mine just started
You don't have an
working.
iPad?
All right, so under,
Mine just started working again.
so that's
It
just the
wasn't
watermill one, right? You don't have anything else in here?
Not in the maps, no. There's a packet of just resolutions.
Yeah.
working. It's
Oh my God.
two sheets of paper stapled together, both sides.
I have number
I'll go
10.
to the iPad.
The next one I have is number 10.
Yeah, number 10, the second page should be number
Yes.
10. Yeah, they're double-sided. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, number 10 is Kasparian. This is a 2-lot subdivision that the pre-application report was approved by the planning board. Let me just see the date. Oh, it was last year, it's last October. It's at 378 Main Street, for a little refresher. They have a variance to do the subdivision. They are currently stuck at the health department. They need a development right. The health department's getting a little stricter from what we've heard on where these development rights can come from. It's got to be within this, from what we're hearing, the same watershed, the same contributing areas, so they're sort of stalled now. The resolution I have on now is to do a 1-year extension of the pre-application report, and that'll take it to October 11th of 2020. Number 10.
1 year.
1 year, yeah.
1 year.
This is the traditional extension for the pre-app.
And the health department can make changes like that.
They need a development right because of the
No, that,
groundwater management zone?
yeah, no, that I understood.
Yeah.
You said that they're now.
More strict, yeah.
Strict, so they can just do that without legislative change.
They can because it's a variance.
Okay,
So it's mitigation for a variance.
yes, got it.
Motion?
Motion.
Motion by Robin.
Second.
Second by Gloria, and all in favor. Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
Don't
I'm
throw
not
the
giving-
paper away.
Not giving up my packet.
Papers, please.
Not giving
You
up
know,
my
we're
packet.
slow, but not that slow.
It's okay.
Don't make the same mistake twice.
So moving on to the next one is Herman and Janet Beck. This is a lot line modification.
Just give us a number. Number
Number
11.
11, yes. It's at 143 Montauk Highway and 90 Jagger Lane in West Hampton. This is their second request for an extension. If you recall, there's a property that has road frontage and then the house in the back on Jagger Lane that the house lot here will be acquiring this corner. But there were some conditions of approval. There seems to be what appears a special trade contractor operating on the property, so there's some certain things that need to be cleared up. They're still working to do that, so they're requesting another extension, and that will be until January 19th of 2020.
Motion by Dennis, second by, second by
Gloria.
Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
Okay. Moving
Now
on
we
to,
can give up our packet.
you can give that one back, because I'm going to give you a new one.
And hold on to it.
These are just two of Anthony's that we'll be going through.
All right. I'll pass.
The first one is
Three, coming that way.
You'll go direct to
Dropping back.
Zapula.
number 2,
No,
Zapula.
Zapula.
And that
We have maps.
We need a few, we have,
there any-
do you have any more of these?
way. Yeah, she gave enough. I took
We're
it
all-
outside of the table.
Well, we don't have enough down here.
We have
We're
aerials.
missing 2. You're all
Yeah.
right?
You should have all, I printed
Yeah.
it out.
I count.
I'll pull it up on mine.
We don't have any.
Yeah, it's in there.
3. Okay, Zapula,
Zapula,
number 2.
this is a 2-lot subdivision. This is actually right next to the Kasparian property at 376 Main Street in Eastport. This will be actually for an affordable housing lot on the back. Anthony has done the review, and he's recommending that it's deemed complete, and we schedule a hearing for November 14th.
Any issues on this?
Not that I've seen, not that he's, communicated to me.
Any questions? Anybody?
It's a single-family residence, not a rental.
Correct, as far as I know, yeah.
No discussion?
Move it.
Motion by Dennis, second by Robin, all in favor. Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
All right, and the last one I have is number 19, PMG LI. This is Seaford. This is the Bowler Market. Your part twos I'll go through. And I have maps that Anthony printed out as well.
Oh, look. Being- What a unique idea, an accessory to a gas station.
Okay, so the Bowler Market is,
Wait, wait.
you good?
Just
Need a
still have
second?
to get materials.
Sure, take your time.
And pass the rest that way. 1, 2, pass 2 this way.
Bowler Market?
Bowler Market.
Bowler Market.
I've got
At
one
239 West
computer, so I
Montauk.
can look at it there. There's a small one.
What do you
Too many
want?
maps. And a Bowler map? Thank you. What is it? Thank you.
Is everybody, we good?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is for a 1,200 square foot accessory convenience market. It's within the R20 zoning district. It contains a pre-existing non-conforming gas station at 239 West Montauk Highway. It's an unlisted action, and the planning board established lead agency on August 22nd. Applicant's done a Part 1. I have a Part 2 here that I'll go through whenever the board's ready. Sure. Okay, so number 1, impact on land. This was prepared by Anthony, so I'm kind of just going through it for you guys. He checked no. Impact on geological features, no. Number 3, impact on surface water, no. Number 4, impact on groundwater, no. Impact on, number 5, impact on flooding, no. Number 6, impact on air, no. Number 7, impacts on plants and animals, no. Number 8, impacts on agricultural resources, no. Number 9, impact on aesthetic resources, no. Number 10, impact on historic and archaeological resources, no. Number 11, impact on open space and recreation is no. Number 12, impact on critical environmental areas, no. 13, impact on transportation, yes, but Anthony's identified that, any impact will be small or no impact. 14, impact on energy, no. 15, impact on noise, odor, and light, no. And 16, impact on human health, no. 17, consistency with community plans, no. 18, consistency with community character, no. And that is all.
I'm sorry, can you locate me?
Sure.
I'm lost.
This is the Bowler Market.
Where
It's
are
on the
we?
south side of Montauk
Forty
Highway.
Barn.
Yeah.
Across from the
Thank
Forty
you,
Barn,
yes.
It's mobile now. It used to-
Identify the landmark.
Yes.
You got me a little, thank you.
It used to be
It's either that or
the,
my nail place, it was one of the two, okay.
it used to be a Hess, now it's a mobile,
Okay,
Yeah.
And it's 1,200 square feet.
1,200 square
Just
feet.
curious, does this comply with the new
yeah.
proposed code changes as far as square footage?
Thinks, I don't know.
Where?
I'm actually not sure.
1,200 versus 650.
Well, the 1,200 doesn't seem to have it broken down
Yeah.
where the retail is. We could
Request that, wouldn't we?
press that. So, yeah,
Is this a pre-existing non-conforming?
It is.
Okay, so, and that.
that would be the 6 or 650,
So-
depending on what you recommend today.
So this is a lot, twice as much.
It is, but it's actually not too far off from a couple of the others that were approved. Like Bridgehampton Service Station, they had 629 square feet of retail, but the building was larger. It was more than 1,200 square feet. So they could have some office space, the storage space, and things like that. So you could recommend,
Floor plan?
well, definitely, you'll be looking at a floor plan,
Yeah, it's
definitely.
definitely
But I don't think this would be too far off from it, but it's hard to tell unless you had a floor plan.
It just seems we might be somewhat inconsistent if we're looking at changing some of our code to, I mean, I know it's not been changed, so we can't apply it legally,
Right,
but from just a common sense,
yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
we're going to definitely talk about that, but yes, what you did is, and what I did is take all the ZBA rescissions, and that one of them was above the 629 if it was pre-existing non-conforming. So the ZBA itself was doing that. They were doing it already.
okay.
So we're, this one probably will be passed before the legislation, so, but, this was your point, that you wanted to give everybody the information,
Yeah.
so they could come just to you and not to the ZBA in the future, so, but it's a good question, yeah, definitely. Okay.
So we're going to get a floor plan, or we'll get that at site?
Always will get a floor
Plan
plan with
at
your
site.
site
That's
plan.
site plan.
application.
That's
Yeah,
easy.
and the ZBA will do the same
Yeah.
thing
Okay.
consistently.
So environmentally, Anthony checked into that, everything is okay? I mean,
Yeah.
all of these diesel stations and the pads and the,
Yeah, he hasn't communicated anything otherwise than that. Yeah. So this would be to adopt an ag deck.
anybody have any more questions? Moved by Dennis, second by Phil, all in favor. Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
Jackie, if I can get your signature on part 3. Right next to the date. Get that to Anthony. And that's all I have.
Oh, that might have been strange. Everybody steals their pens. No, seriously, we had a discussion about
Yeah, their kids are not, it's a filter.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Claire.
I'm going to go in order. My first
Five.
one is number 5, 12 Foster. And you can see it says casual water in the
Yeah.
corner. So casual water was a application that was approved in 2014 to change this large former agricultural building that was a wine distributor to special trade contractor use, and they never completed it, never received their CO. So this is a new application to clean that up, now 2 special trade contractor uses. I'm recommend putting it through the process because it's been a while. Also, we could probably get some improvements. The town engineer right now is recommending incompletes, and the applicant's working on it. So I'm just deeming it incompletes and good for that.
We talked about sprucing up the front with street trees and.
Comments in the
Yeah.
comments, the checklist for that.
Great, great.
Great.
So incomplete,
Incomplete. please.
Motion? And we need a motion?
yeah, motion.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Robin, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
All right.
Opposed, abstention, 7 in favor.
Okay, so then my next one is number 12, Edgewater Motel. They think they're going to get plans to us in 2 weeks, but they're going to ask for a 1-month extension on this for review till November 14th for SECRA.
Number 12. 2 weeks? 2 weeks?
1 month,
1
November 14th.
1 month. Motion by Phil,
Second.
second by Robin, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
And then my next one is number 13, which is T-Mobile, Jager Path, Verizon, which is the 10-foot extension on the pole. Some plans, all these little tiny plans
This
they
will
have.
always be my favorite. 10-foot extension for a 10-foot mistake. Go up to another 12.
No, a lot of paper.
For 10-foot extension.
We don't have this on, oh my
1 pound
Lord.
of paper per
Okay,
foot.
why don't you put us on this one up?
This is the one with the
This is,
I'm going to very quickly go through this. It meets all the zoning requirements except for the west property line fall zone, which shares it with another industrial zone, which is commercial. It's got a buffer on that side, so it really doesn't have any impact, and you're the ones who give that variance, so. you can grant it.
How many feet are they shy on the fall zone?
About 10,
10 feet?
yeah, on the west side. But it is also another commercial zone. There's no activity in that area. There's nothing in that area.
Are we required to give notification to that adjoining property owner?
It was a full process with this, so, no.
We're not, even on the map, we don't have notification that it's,
The setback is supposed to be
Yeah,
100
yeah.
feet, and in this case, I think it's 80, so I think it's 20 feet shy. No, there's no requirement. It's your threshold for this, and let me just read it, is that, and let me see where I can say it. Okay, page 13, in the middle, talks about setbacks. Plan board may reduce the aforementioned setbacks provided that no existing or future residence can be located within the proximity of setbacks, so it's LI 40, so it can't. No significant adverse impact to the surrounding properties will occur, and the goals of this article are achieved. So the goals of the article is that you found that LI 40 is where we want these structures, if they're anywhere, in HB, and the next zone, which is affected, is not compromised by it. So there would be, if there was any buildings put in that
There's no
area, it would be
structure
the
there?
20 feet. No structure. Actually, it's supposed to be a buffer, and they cleared the buffer out. But
adjoining property.
The adjoining property. If you can look at the aerial should be attached to this, so you can take a look at it. It was a site plan called JKW, and the building is to the north, and there was an area that they were supposed to keep natural. They didn't. They cleaned it out, and they have some outdoor storage there now. That's not legal. But even in this case, if they put a building in, it would meet the 20 feet, and it wouldn't, be the fall zone.
Can we say there is no structure
Yeah.
to impede? I
Yeah.
think we should add that.
Absolutely. So what I said is the planning board finds, there's no residential nature, no adverse impact to anticipated the adjacent property, and so I'll say there's no structure in that area. Okay?
That is also LI 40,
Now,
right?
this is-
Yep.
This is monopole, correct?
This is a monopole,
Yeah.
and it's designed to fall, straight down as we've.
Yeah, they just sort of fold. I mean.
So they say.
Well, no, it's not.
There's a lot of video on these
We
things
need
blowing over in
engineering
hurricanes.
input, and if our code needs to be modified, it should account for monopoles, because they're being held to a standard that it doesn't really relate to the actual engineering of these things.
Well, that's the fall zone, we call it fall zone, which is the 100% or the 300%. It's also to separate uses, so that the pole is not on top of the industrial building, so there is a setback to it, or not on top of a residential building.
Right.
That's why we built in the 100% or the 300%. But again, they put the pole in this area already. This is a 10-foot extension onto a pole that has been 90, which is a 10-foot, variance,
Less.
and then is 100 now.
But just refresh my recollection.
Yeah.
This is the one that was supposed to be built to 80.
Yep,
We found out they built it to 90.
Yep.
Then they went in for the administrative to get that
Yep.
10, and now coming back for another 10.
correct.
Okay.
So it's 20 feet beyond the.
And you
original.
have this record,
But the one
so,
we approved. Yeah, I just,
Yeah,
it's
trying
just,
to
I
track it.
always like to clarify that it was built to the 90 when we approved an 80.
yes.
Okay, and then had to go through administrative compliance. But I just.
Can we
like to
limit
be
it
clear.
somewhere in our approval, that, no more extensions?
Well, again, if they came back for another 10-foot, or would you say they
Right.
want to incrementally do this, you'd reopen secret. You did secret on this one.
Okay,
So you don't reopen
So that's
secret,
the
and that's your
mechanism.
tool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
okay,
Yep,
Will other carriers use this pole?
yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Everything is
So that would help
co-located.
eliminate poles from the other carriers.
Absolutely. So a lot of the other.
Does the extra
Go ahead.
10 feet give a larger radius so that poles at that distance will not be built?
That is what they've testified to, yes.
That's the idea.
Yep, so,
Yeah,
All poles-
and the co-location is good, but it's also income for them.
sure, exactly. So otherwise, the report doesn't identify any major issues. What's carried over is that it's a junkyard and it needs to be kept clear for emergency access, and we just want the colors to match. So I can go over the resolution if everybody's good with that, the
Yep.
conditions? Okay, so this would be special exception approval. Page
what
1 of
page?
the resolution. And that would the note of the color of pole to match light gray or white to match the existing upper portion of the monopole. The general condition of screening mechanical equipment from adjacent properties, roadways. No dusted on lighting fixtures, no additional lighting without planning board approval. The lighting shall be shielded. No exterior antenna shall be on the wireless facility. All proposed future equipment should be installed inside the fenced area. The aisles between the salvage yard storage shall be kept clear for emergency access to the satisfaction of the town fire marshal. And the cable tray and outside equipment shall be secured in a manner to be tamper-proof. The payment of the engineering department fee is 3A, affidavit, and 6 sets of plans. If you're in agreement.
So you've gone through all of the standards here? We've got
All the
pages,
standards.
Design standards.
Yes. So the only variance was the one I spoke about, the 10-foot. Everything else is in compliance.
And
A
the,
lot. It's a lot for you guys to go through. Right?
yes.
Yeah.
The buildings, the accessory, the maintenance, equipment buildings.
Yep. There's no additional buildings. It's cabinets in this case, I believe. And it's all going in the existing.
The existing,
Yeah,
nothing,
that's
nothing
it.
additional?
I don't believe so.
And same thing with roadways for servicing that.
Correct,
It's the
it's
same,
all
they're using what existing.
Right, so a lot of it was NA, existing, NA,
Okay.
existing. Those were my responses.
Can we give them a calibrated yardstick so it doesn't go above 100 feet?
Yeah, could,
I was thinking that was one thing I had some thought
I-
to, maybe having a certification at the
Yes.
end
I
that it's
really-
100 feet.
that's why I
With the
brought that,
applicant's representatives here, maybe they could answer to
that
that.
was the reason why I brought that up.
Yeah.
Because the pole that was supposed to be built to 80 became 90.
Yeah,
And
90 becomes
Becomes
100 and not
now
110.
10.
I think it's not
I
unreasonable.
agree
Okay.
with Phil.
Well,
But we'll ask the applicant if they would agree to it, if you are,
They would,
that's a
they would
condition.
have to agree to it?
They would have
As
to,
opposed to us imposing it?
well, I think it's easier to ask and then see
Well,
if
they
they agree to it.
went to
Right?
90.
So we're asking
What did they went to 90?
if you would provide a certification at 100
Sure,
feet.
that shouldn't be a problem. So Denise Vista with the Model Law Group on behalf of Verizon Wireless. We actually don't own the pole, so SBA, who's the tower owner, my understanding is that's how it was confirmed that it was actually built to 90. Now, SBA didn't build the pole, T-Mobile did. So once completed, then we can obtain that certification, whether it's from Verizon or from SBA, but that shouldn't be an issue.
So who's actually building the pole? SBA or?
SBA in conjunction with Verizon,
The
yes.
two of them
The
together.
pole is existing, the extension, you mean?
Yeah,
Yes.
So we're certifying that something that's not legal is, okay.
Oh, no, no.
Well, no, it has a CO.
Yeah, you'd certify that it's the height it says it is, 100 feet.
Just what
Correct.
it is.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
right, exactly. I think that's,
I think we can put that in.
Yeah.
understand that this applicant isn't the one that initially built it to the 90.
Correct,
I've
correct.
testified to that before.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're just adding, Verizon Wireless is not on this pole. We require it, we require the extension in order to co-locate on the pole.
Okay, so we can add that.
absolutely.
that,
It's going to be
verification.
for, prior to issuance of CO,
Yes.
certification as to the height of the pole.
Yes.
Okay.
So that would be the
Thank you.
submission to the building department then?
It would be
To
to
bo-
me,
to-
yeah, it would
okay.
be to me, and then I would say the conditions met, and then we would.
Okay. Oh, it's going to be a condition of approval?
It would be a condition of approval prior to CO,
Okay, sure.
CC in this case.
Okay, great.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Good.
Okay, so motion to approve this with Zuccarelli. Second by Phil. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. With that addition,
The
Claire.
gentlemen
Great,
on the end
thank
are
you.
working hard today.
They are.
I
And
use that term
then
loosely.
my next one is East End Hospice,
Both.
Number
14?
14.
14.
Yes. So in this case, more than 2 years ago, you recommended a maintenance bonds be implemented on the property for the landscaping. I got the check, and I never got the maintenance bond. And so so they asked me for the check back last couple weeks ago, and I said, oh, well, let me go inspect it. The landscaping's in, it's in really good condition, everything is good. But we never set it with the town board. So in this case, I'll be rescinding the requirement for the maintenance bonds. They've met the issue, the intent of it. So this would be to rescind the requirement for maintenance bond
We
for
actually
East End
called
Hospice.
up on the visuals,
Yeah,
the buffers and the plantings there, which are pretty spectacularly beautiful.
they did a great job on this
Yeah.
one. So it's all in good order. And so just like a maintenance bonds, but in this case, we're just going to remove the condition. Okay?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by
Second.
Robin, all in favor. Opposed, abstentions, 7 in favor.
Thank you.
Bridgehampton Childcare,
Yes, and I passed that out to you to take a look at if you'd like. It's just distribution. They have some things they have to work out with the town engineer. I had some questions about the parking requirements. So we're going to try to work on it. The deadline's in 2 weeks. So if they can, that'd be great. If not, we might be saying incomplete because.
well, can we do a work session on it or something?
We could,
Yeah.
we could. The building looks great. It's just a matter of lining everything up. Do they have enough parking? The town engineer has a lot of technical things. I don't know if a work session's necessary because I think you've seen it as a work session and you liked it.
So the applicant is talking with the engineering department?
Definitely, yes. There's been a lot of
That's the
work.
main issue.
That's the main
engineering.
issue.
Yeah.
But as you can see, it was kind of, they rushed it on to be complete without the town engineer saying completeness.
22.
And that's what we get into this. We get into we have an action deadline in 2 weeks and town engineer hasn't said yes yet, so.
This is complete, all right?
This was not complete because the applicant came in and said, can you just get me complete? I'll work with the town engineer. Well, he didn't, so.
But we had a hearing though, didn't we?
Then you had a hearing.
On an incomplete application.
Yes.
Oh.
He's very persuasive.
Was this Wayne?
Yes. But it's also a good project, so you want to, there's a timing issue on here. And that's why I'm going to work with him too. We're going to sit down, we're going to get this ready for you, hopefully in 2 weeks. But he's known this, they met with the town engineer, but they're just, the list is pretty large, so
Yeah.
they have some things to do.
So we don't rescind the completeness.
I wouldn't, and, I don't like to do this for anybody, if you can work it all out in 2 weeks, just so you know, you have the deadlines in 2 weeks, so, and they could give us an extension if they're almost there, too.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think the actual building is an issue or anything like that. I think it's just a matter of getting everything technically done.
Did Wayne seem to feel that in 2 weeks he could resolve this?
Yes, he did. He said that, actually. So take a look at it.
Yeah,
And if you have any questions in the meantime,
just-
let me know.
Yeah.
Okay? So there's no action on this one. And then we just have the accessory. I'll come and sit with you guys if you want. Your code.
So what is oh, it's just a discussion.
It's yes, no action. Okay. So hold on to it.
The code checklist.
Okay.
So based on your comments last time, I came up with a draft code, which Janice looked at yesterday and Kyle looked at this morning, so I made some changes. Basically making it a little simpler. Janice added a really great legislative intent, though, like a lot of language based on the comp plan, and why we want to control convenience stores in the areas there are. So I think that helps. And then there's some technical things where you have to put it in the use code and stuff such with the special exception. What else we're going to add is formula food franchises. If we leave that language in there that they're not permitted within the accessory convenience store, we want to define that. So Kyle thinks he has a nice, good definition for that. We'll just add that language in there.
Formula food franchise like
Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin'
Subway.
Donuts.
Which is
Subway.
ironically in a lot of these places.
They are.
Yeah.
So they would be prohibited?
They would be prohibited. Now, if you don't think that that's a problem, so far we've been controlling it because we don't allow them to have an external sign at all. So if they start putting signs on their windows or signs on the property, our sign code's strong enough to say, no, you can't do that. But
With regard to the franchise?
yeah,
food.
the franchise food. But this is taken from, again, this whole code basically was taken from the Village of Sag Harbor with some tweaks to it. If you think that's too much and you don't have any issues with food franchise, we could take it out.
I mean, as long as it's internal to the use,
Okay.
it seems to be part of their operation model. I mean, these operators are now national entities, and they might have partnership
Might be
agreements
simpler.
with- So as long as we don't have this signage, this franchise signage
Yeah.
on the road.
That's fine, and our code is strong enough to do that, so we do that
As lo-
I mean,
already.
I think
As long as we don't, we can back it up with just the signage.
Yeah, oh, absolutely,
Well, I
100%.
I would also think that we're limiting the size, and that would more likely impact these franchises because they need a certain
Well,
amount
they
of
just,
space.
typically, they just have one, I know the Dunkin' Donuts
Krispy
is just like
Kreme,
one
Krispy Kreme.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you go
one
inside, right?
counter or something, or a case where their product is located, whether it's Subway or Dunkin' Donut or whatever. But would it be beneficial to restate some of our sign standard, even though it's in the sign code, so?
Yes,
can
we
we
can do
It's in
that.
here, yeah.
We
You know,
could
the-
signs,
regarding
all the-
the amount of window space that could be covered and.
Just restate it?
Yeah, just the
Yes.
relevant parts.
Under signs.
Yeah, I can do that.
Specifically, like, coverage of the, percentage of window coverage, because otherwise you get full
Yep.
floor-to-ceiling
Good
signs
point.
on the
Yeah, it's
glass.
25%,
Yeah.
but I can add that.
A question for Kathleen, though. If you put some of that language into the code, might it be assumed that that's the only sign code that you have to abide by?
No, I mean, you're just saying that in addition to all other applicable provisions of the Southampton Sign Code. But this kind of bullets out some of the things that, that I'm thinking more of the, things like the coverage of or the sandwich board signs.
Yep, right,
Yeah.
which is actually already in the
Do you want
filling
to
stations.
limit how much they can take in the place so it doesn't turn into a franchise?
You
inadvertently?
mean the square footage?
Yeah. Is that a concern that it would inadvertently become the franchise?
Or was the concern about having, you know how they do that, where they have the second, like, place to
Yeah.
check out? And that's like specifically Dunkin'
Yeah,
To the
Donuts?
franchise.
yeah, that's what I'm.
Or coffee.
I'm
Sorry about
concerned,
that.
yeah.
I'm sorry
Yeah,
about saying
no,
Dunkin'
no,
Donuts,
we were going the same route. I'm concerned, that's maybe why Kyle was looking at, or Sag Harbor looked at keeping it out, was that, because you can also have one franchise that has associated franchises too. You know, it used to be, I think Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin Robbins and a few others were connected, and all of a sudden you would get one in, and then all of a sudden you would get another one in, and a third in,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you have the whole space taken
Dunkin'
up.
Donuts has that. It has Baskin Robbins
Robbins, yeah.
with a Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah,
And that really has additional space to storage. That's what you're trying to say.
Well, I'm just concerned that what we started with, and maybe that's why he didn't want, the franchises going in there, maybe is a limit. I don't know if we need to limit it. I don't even know if we want to limit it. I just think it's something we ought to consider.
Or prohibited.
Or prohibit it.
But-
Because then you get layers and layers
Yeah,
of,
that's what
you
I'm
can
thinking.
only have one franchise per company or
The
whatever.
problem you may have is that if a convenience store has, let's say, a section on ice cream, and they sell coffee, and then Dunkin' Donuts comes in and says, well,
says
we're gonna
you
do
can't-
coffee, we're gonna have one, percolator that'll do Dunkin' Donuts coffee. But you have ice cream, so we can bring in our ice cream. So that's what I think you're talking about.
Yeah, I have a lot of concerns. It's just, and I think that maybe Carl was talking, or maybe that's some of the discussion, what Sag Harbor was concerned about, that once you open the door to the franchises, do you lose that convenience store concept and now eventually become franchise?
Yeah, one begets another.
Yeah.
Well, you know what we could do? I'm sorry, go ahead, Des.
I'm
The
not
operation
sure how I
is
feel.
defined by the products that are sold. I think it's going to be a tough, very tough area to even control and
That's what I'm
monitor.
saying, maybe that's why it's good that's probably why Sag Harbor just said, no formula franchises are permitted within the accessory, and then you don't have to deal with that.
But that's eliminating a simple, like Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
It's a big take-in, so someone may come in for Dunkin' Donuts and buy 5 gallons of gas that they didn't intend to. So I'm saying that the draw no longer is the gasoline, but
Can
the
we
type
find-
of
yeah,
coffee, and they're selling coffee anyway.
May I ask, can we find out what was the thought pattern behind Sag Harbor saying not to allow the franchises in, and let's discuss that
They
again?
didn't, yeah, I don't know what they intention, obviously, but I'm
What
pretty
their
sure they
concerns
didn't want a franchise. And so they defined it, which is, they're talking about 1 or 2 gas stations that they have to control, You're talking about multiple. But again, to date, that's how we've done it. You know, what we could do is take it out, but still have a comments regarding it. The town board may want to search more about possibly putting additional language about this. That way, there's some research done
Yeah,
prior
because I
to.
would like some.
But I don't want it to bog down what we're trying to do
Yeah.
here. You know what I mean?
Square
Yeah.
footage.
Yeah.
You're
But you
saying
also
take
don't want
out
to
the
leave
no
it to the town board
franchise.
to discuss.
Oh, no. We're leaving it to Janice and Kyle to
Yeah.
do the research.
Yes, could you
Yes,
just,
yeah.
can we send that back for some more?
Yeah.
Some more research? 'Cause
Definitely.
I'm not sure how I'm feeling, and I'm arguing with myself, but I don't really understand.
When you start answering
I-
yourself, then you.
Then you've got
But I'm just saying,
You're too intelligent people.
I just would like to understand why Sag Harbor particularly.
Right,
decided to-
exactly.
Well, in favor of free trade.
Yeah, I know.
And
Thing that came to mind when we were talking about this is Subway.
Yeah.
You're preparing foods, you go in, you order food, item, then you take it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's certainly part of the,
I think
it's usually
much-
about to have 12, 15 square feet in the unit that they're renting.
You never
Right.
gonna stop.
Well, that's the
When-
kind of franchise that I've seen in a gas station, where it was a whole separate section and a place to sit and eat. So it basically, when we're talking about a 600 square foot store, that's the whole store.
Yeah, could eat up a lot of space.
Not a case of Dunkin' Donuts.
Right.
But you know, the whole with need to make the bread and some guy. Yeah, I was thinking the same.
So I'd like to do that if you're good
Yeah,
with
I
that.
like that.
That would be good.
Along the side.
So let's talk about the square footages above that, which was on this third page of it. It's highlighted 600 or 650. Now, 600 was what Village Sag Harbor had. The highest that the CBA have ever done is 629. So that's why I said 650. We would be covering everything that's been done to date. So it's up to you. I just tell you that another property had 700, one had 700, which was the maximum they've ever done. So I think 650 might be reasonable. Or you could do 600, which would be
600.
consistent with the village, which would be
I
fine.
would prefer 600.
Okay, I think you're talking 50 square feet.
little
So I'm sure they could people can be, you know.
The 50 square feet is for the new marijuana stand.
There you go, exactly.
Because they don't sell cigarettes anymore.
That's right.
And then, so I'm just going to make it 1,100 then for
Yes,
for that
600
price.
and
1,100, and then I'm going to change the 1,150 down by the parking access too. Okay, and then otherwise, everything was what I said to you before. We'll add the language about the sign. You will see this one more time,
Okay.
at least,
The signage.
because the ZBA will have, the town board will have to refer to
Referral,
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Augmenting the signage is important.
Yeah, oh,
Really
absolutely.
spelling
We'll
it
just
out.
we'll restate it. Everybody knows. So I'm going to change this memo to be addressed to the town board from the planning board. And then I will change some language to it, and I'll add some language about, they may want to look into restricting formula uses in there too.
Okay, one other question.
Yep.
Some of the gas stations today sell gas tanks,
Okay.
Containers.
cylinders,
Yep.
Oh,
containers,
the
right?
propane.
Propane, and they're in cages
Yep.
with bollards in front. How do we handle those in gas stations? We've had a few of them.
So to date, we have been issuing them admins, accessory to a gas station, and a couple other uses like a
Ice machine.
distributor,
Yeah.
beer distributor would have it accessory.
It's like an ice.
Yeah, maybe a,
Hardware.
garden center might have it too. Any place you think,
But gas stations specifically, are we doing ourselves a disservice by not looking into those accessory uses which clutter up an environment? When we're just focusing on the building itself, which I think is necessary right now, but, they could take stuff away from the building because it's so small, and let's put it over in the side yard and sell gas canisters. You see more, gas stations more and more selling lumber, wood,
Firewood.
bundles, firewood. I mean, have we thought, are we being too myopic here? Or, That's a question.
Okay.
These are accessory these are
all,
accessory structures.
that's what I'm saying, accessory
Accessory
uses.
And where we usually.
Oftentimes, they plunk these things right in a parking space,
Well,
so you
that's-
lose a parking space.
Parking space, or they'll plunk it right in front of the convenience store, so that the expansion of, in other words, what they're not going to be fitting inside, they could easily fit outside. So, but we don't address that.
Because it's being done as an admin, maybe the instruction is that it's not to be done as an admin, and
Well,
let the planning board take a look at it
Maybe,
each on an
yeah, maybe in
individual.
the
Yeah.
code, though, every applicant shall designate an area for outdoor accessory structures and show it right on their site plan. So if you do the gas things, here's where it's going to go. Because they'll sit in here and say, oh, we're not going to sell firewood. But if you did, where would you put it?
Where would you put
You have to earmark a space. I'm thinking on the side of the building.
The way we do
where
with barns
the
and
ice machine and
aggregators.
and
Well,
the
that's what I'm
gas.
saying, if you
dispensers.
took it out of it being an admin, that it came back to us for site plan review, if somebody wants to do this,
Well, we
instead
should
of
write it,
being
yeah, we should
administrative.
write it into the code now.
Yeah.
We're going to assume,
It
because
should
we don't know,
be
they all
written
do
here.
it, so it's a normal part of their business plan.
That's right.
These outdoor accessory,
Outdoor accessory things.
Okay, so,
Retail.
so that last point, which is outdoor display of goods of any kind is prohibited.
Well,
Okay, so-
that speaks more to the cases of the
Beer or
Any-
washer fluid and.
Any contained outdoor storage shall secure planning board approval.
What is-
More than that,
but what
they
is
should,
contained?
we should ask them to show it on the, in that, every application shall designate, well, we're gonna make them designate an area.
But I'm also saying that.
Gas
for
filling
those-
stations, oh, sorry.
I'm just saying, but my only caveat is if they're not coming to us, meaning they're not putting up an accessory building, but they intend to now do propane. From what Claire is saying, it's been an admin decision.
Oh, that's different.
And, well, that's what
two
came
things.
up. There's two issues. It's where it's come up as an admin decision to existing stations. Maybe it shouldn't be an admin, it should come to us so we can take a look at where it's going, you know, is it taking a parking spot? Is it, you know, what effect it's having?
Well, even an
And then in the
admin,
initial-
they can't take a parking spot.
Well,
because-
but I'm saying maybe it shouldn't be an admin.
But
It
so
should
here's,
come to
but
us.
so here's what's happening. I mean, admins are intended to make it easier for the applicant. Sometimes it's okay, and sometimes they're abused, okay? And sometimes we don't agree, because we haven't even seen the admin approval.
Sure.
But what Dennis is saying sort of preempts this. If we're looking at a site plan, and so many X square feet, that's where all of your outdoor propane, wood, et cetera.
No wood.
Propane next to
Fire.
wood is not
No
good.
wood. No, yeah, don't do it. But that's out their display. If they're doing wood, put it inside.
Yeah.
You know, but I know you're saying like a contained,
A
Like the
contained
ice machine.
area.
like the ice machine.
And the
Yeah.
propane.
And the
the
propane.
I think
Now, the
the
propane is
the
even
bun-
more problematic because it's usually in a cage behind bollards, safety bollards. So
100%.
that cars don't go
Yep.
into it. But if we're looking at this, I think we need to address that. Those accessory.
Make it part of the,
Make
part
it
of the
part of
site plan.
this, make it part of it, or make it part of the site plan. Where
They have, just like they have to designate a dumpster area, designate a handicap park.
Right.
Do you want me to put it as a second issue that
Yeah,
they should
put
look
it-
into?
yeah,
Okay,
outdoor-
okay, let
yeah,
me do
do it
that.
under
But also,
So-
Claire, you should
Augment
look
F.
at the relationship between propane and the pumps. I'm positive there has to be something in law that says the propane cannot be within a certain area of the pumps. Because if that blows, it blows all the pumps.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from a fire standpoint, we're starting off at a good point that it's going to say they must be so many feet from the pumps. So we
I think there are
indicate,
some
as
regs on
code
that.
says this, then they must have a lock secure propane
Cage,
area.
yeah, right. We've included, I can't remember which gas station it was, but we've had those propane tanks. They're called something.
So do you want to look at this and take it out of admin also, because that's the second class
Well,
of these
I
happening?
can, well, admin is that Kyle's decided to do it, so I can just talk to him about that
Yeah.
and make sure that you guys want to look at those in the future. That's no
Is
problem.
that the consensus?
Well, I think what we're trying to do is to look at a site plan. And rather than do these add-ons piecemeal, oh, I want propane here, they come in, and 2 years later, I want this here. We're trying to do it once,
Yeah.
you know?
Exactly.
Because it's all these add-on little additions, and that's a double entendre, that we're trying to eliminate, trying to
Sure.
clean it up, clean up
No,
the process.
definitely. I think that's very reasonable. So,
You could probably accomplish it by saying the storage and sale of external merchandise should be limited to X square feet.
Something like that, and
More
indicate it on
important,
the site plan.
we want to see it on the site plan.
See
We don't
where
want
it's
it
gonna
right in
go.
front of the building.
Which is where they put it,
Yeah.
right.
So they put
because
it-
that's point of sale.
I'm a little confused where we're leaving the franchise stuff.
Oh, I'm saying, I'm taking it out of the code, but I'm saying, could
Town board.
the long-range planning look into incorporating limitations or prohibiting franchise in convenience stores? And, because you want to look to see what's the history of that, right?
Well, I'd like to just, make sure we're
Understand.
not being
Yeah.
restricted for the hell of being restricted.
What's the intent of, what was Sag Harbor's
Sag Harbor.
intention?
Yeah, right, and that's, you're only going to know that if you do
By the
some
way, I want
research.
to
Right.
thank planning for
Yeah, for
this.
doing this,
This,
it's great.
It's very important to us when we come to something like this, where we see either a series of things happening, or we see a legislative that we're able to work with, and I thank Claire, you, and whoever else worked with you on this.
Well,
'cause
thank you,
it's
Robin,
very-
for bringing the issue up.
Yes.
You're the point person to really.
And I think
Ball
how
rolling.
quickly
Thank you.
it was
Incredible.
turned around.
Thank you so much.
You know, government usually moves a lot slower. Nice.
Thank you so much. I think it was a great
And we
service
do
to the
have in the
town.
works, when Kathleen comes up for air, the limitation of square footage and stores in village business and hamlet centers. So Kathleen's going to be working on that when she
Great.
comes up for air.
So I'm
Are we
going to
acting on
ask
that?
you to, yes, adopt resolution to send a memo to the town board with the attached model legislation for them to consider.
May I move that?
We don't want to see
Can we see
all
it
your
again?
notes.
Oh, I'm going to send it to you.
Okay.
If you have any questions, we can, again, it's a work in progress stuff.
Okay.
This is just, let's give them something to jump with.
Okay,
Start with.
may I move it?
Sure.
Thank
Moved
you.
by Robin,
Second.
second by Dennis, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
looking at it.
very much.
Okay, great.
Kathleen, I just wanted to ask, and I don't know if now is the right time, I just want, for the edification of the board, the process on the next application on Lewis Road, what we're doing, what is a preliminary versus...
I think Anthony can.
Okay, so Anthony, can you just illuminate us?
Sure. Do you want to invite the outside?
This is, it doesn't matter, they can, yeah,
Well, I think
Yeah.
they'll be offended if they
Yeah.
know we're discussing something without, since they're here.
Thank you.
we can get, this is the same 24 pages? that you
Yes.
sent
It's
to
the
us?
same.
The printed front and back.
Okay. did
same
you,
as what you
Is it
sent
pretty
us.
much the same as the one that you sent, Anthony?
Yes.
All right, so that I don't have to, I can take
So-
the copy I printed and...
Right, with our notes on it. Okay, great. So I asked Anthony if he could just go through the process with us about what we're doing. Go ahead, Anthony.
So, Jackie's asking about the process. We are in a subdivision application and a site plan application, but really first and foremost a subdivision application. It is a major subdivision as classified under the town code, and as such, it goes through a three-step process: a pre-application, a preliminary application, and a final application. And we're in the middle part of it, the preliminary application. The pre-application, which we went through and identified a pre-application report, it's an initial phase of the subdivision application, which really identifies a whole series of issues that need to be addressed. In this particular case, the big one, if you might recall, was the question of whether or not the golf course is accessory to the subdivision. That was a big question that came out of our pre-application, which was sent to the zoning board, and we know their determination. A preliminary application is where the planning board really sets the lot configuration, the road and drainage specifications, and again, through the assistance with the town engineer or their representatives. In this case, they hired an outside consultant. And to complete the secret process. That's the key components of a preliminary application. It sets the lot, it sets the drainage and the road, and secret gets done during the preliminary process.
So we haven't finished that yet, right?
No,
We
we're
still
in-
have
we're-
finding statement to do?
Yes, and I should say, in this case, because there had been a positive declaration and the adoption of an environmental impact statement, your preliminary application also has to include your findings as it relates to that document, which we'll talk a little bit today about when I get to that in the report. After you do a preliminary application, a preliminary approval, the final step is the final application. In order for an applicant to come back for a final application, that's when they had to have received health department approval, and the maps and any of the conditions that you were imposed at preliminary would be included in the new maps. That's the final is where a lot of the conditions of approval get imposed. It's a lot of the legal documents that we're going to need, any reports on best management practices that get incorporated into the golf course, for example, all of that would be done during the final stage, which really is the stage where we are putting all the final pieces together to come up with a final map that could be filed at the office of the county clerk. Tied in with that, we have a site plan application that we're reviewing somewhat concurrently, although I believe, after talking with the applicant a little bit, we would identify in this particular phase some preliminary issues or concerns with the site plan, but ultimately I think the site plan application would be finalized during the final phase of the application for subdivision. In other words, the final subdivision application, then the final site plan application will happen concurrently at this stage. Does that
Well,
answer?
that provides some clarity. Does anybody have any questions?
Just, I have a question about referrals. Just when do certain referrals occur, and do we refer again?
Referrals do occur at all three phases of the application. We did it for preliminary, we did it for pre-application, we did it for preliminary, and we will do it again for final application.
So all the referral comments are in here, in this document?
All the
Correct.
referral comments that we have received to date are.
To date.
Yes, are in this.
Except for
And then anything that is missing to date would then,
Yeah, we're gonna get to the Pine Barrens, we'll have theirs after the next meeting next week, so we'll have that for our meeting on the 24th. We didn't get, and I'll get to that when I get to the report, we didn't get comments from the
Planning Commission.
from the Planning Commission.
Because they didn't have a sufficient number to vote.
That's right, that's
So we're waiting for those two.
Well, we're waiting for one, the Pine
Pine Barrens
Planning,
Commission.
yeah, the Planning Commission, and we'll.
Yeah, that's a default approval.
That's a
They had their
default
opportunity to
approval.
weigh in, and they did not weigh in.
I see.
They don't respond, it's considered approved.
No,
Well, they didn't have enough people for the vote.
Well, that's not what it
That's
said.
not
It
what
said
it
they didn't
had.
have enough people to vote for an action.
correct,
There's a difference.
there's a difference.
Does that mean
So-
it was not a
because they
quorum?
needed so many.
No, it doesn't mean there wasn't a quorum, it means they didn't have enough votes to take an action.
It was like a super
I thought
majority.
if the planning commission doesn't act within its statutory time limit, the application is considered approved.
It is.
Yeah, she's saying the default
And
approval.
that's what happened here.
So technically, it's approved by the planning commission.
Correct.
Yep.
Technically. So how many people do they have on that board? 20?
Answer that.
15?
15?
The membership is 15.
15.
And
They
they-
don't have a full number.
There's no representative from Southampton, there's no representative from East Hampton.
Right.
They had 10 in attendance at that meeting. They didn't get 8 votes.
Okay. So you got a default approval. Okay, so is everybody clear about the process? But I just wanted it to be laid
Except
out.
for the Pine Barrens, which you're going to
Yeah.
cover.
Yeah, I'll cover it.
I think that they are due to vote on the 17th, I
They're due to
believe.
vote, yes, next week.
All
Right.
One other referral, I should just ask about DEC, when is that referral made?
It's in there.
Do you want Anthony to go through the report now?
Okay,
so
I'll
that
wait,
we'll-
because
It's on page 10.
yeah, I know, I had some confusion about it.
Suffolk County
I'll wait
Department
till
of
we
Health
get-
Services,
no
all right.
I'll wait
So
till we
you
get
want to
there.
walk through this,
Sure.
Anthony?
Just a quick question, the compliance certificate schedule you sent from the Pine, was that a Pine Barrens document?
No, it was not. There's a document that came out of the information that was submitted by the applicant, and that document that I sent you about the Pine Barrens compliance, the matrix, what it did was it identified the regulation that imposed by the Pine Barrens. It had the applicant's response, and it had the staff response.
Oh.
So that's how I did.
Prepared by staff.
Was prepared by staff.
Is that a carryover from the old application, or was that prepared for this application?
It was prepared for this application.
So that's this.
Yes,
I
that's
tried to
that.
print it out, but it's
Yeah,
beyond the
that-
margin.
it's
Yeah.
11 by 17.
Yeah.
Do you have
I
copies of
could
this?
get copies for you
Could you
guys,
please?
because we're
Please.
going to go over that at the next meeting when we have the Pine Barrens comments. I thought it would be prudent to do the Pine Barrens stuff when we have the Pine Barrens comments.
Can we
But I wanted
leave with copies of this today?
100%.
Okay.
Well, we have copies on the.
You can't
Yeah,
print
it's-
it
You
out.
can't print it out.
And it's really-
I could get them for you guys.
It's really hard to read
It's
on the
beyond
computer.
margins.
It's no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on 11 by 17, so I could print them up for you.
Oh, do you want me to get Matt to do that?
Yeah.
Please.
Could you?
Yep.
Thanks, Claire. Might have to be on legal paper. if it's
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the 14th.
it's going to be on,
Yeah.
ledger.
Yeah, 'cause it was
Anthony.
tough on the computer.
So are we,
Slide.
is the Pine Barrens and us now sitting in a totally advisory role? Is that where we are now?
With,
Pine Barrens Commission.
Pine Barrens Commission? Are we just totally advisory to them, or do they have some kind of veto or?
They've asserted jurisdiction, right?
well, they they've asserted jurisdiction over the project, but we're not advisory to them. They're advisory to us, but they do issue
A report?
a report that we're
Or
still
a
waiting on.
judgment?
And I don't know what it's going to say.
We don't know what it's going to say.
At this point,
What they can say.
they're voting on it next week, John, and that's why it'll be included in an updated version of what I gave you as soon as I get it from them. But at this point, we're still waiting, so.
But we're not at a point where they could say, well, we don't like this.
The report might very well say something like that,
Yeah.
but we just don't know. We'll know that when we get it.
And then at that point, we'll see how we react to it or
Correct.
don't react to it.
Right.
That's right.
That will be up to the board.
So one of the other clarifications that we had, because it took me a while to get my head around this, we are an involved agency during this whole process.
Right,
The town board is the lead agency.
correct,
We are involved agency. We remain an involved agency.
correct.
Because there was some confusion
I'm
about
sorry, I
that.
thought we had
Yeah,
become
I-
lead agents.
Yeah, that's
There
what I
is
thought.
only, under secret, okay, a lead agency is designated to make a determination of significance. Negative declaration, conditional negative declaration, or a positive declaration. And the lead agency, if they do a positive declaration, which is what was done in this particular case, are then charged with seeing that the preparation of environmental impact statement get done and get completed. That's the lead agency's job. Everybody else is an involved agency. A new lead agency or becoming lead agency is only necessary, okay, or required if another board decides that they needed a supplemental environmental impact statement, for example. Then you would have to go back and redesignate a new lead agency. But absent another agency having a reason or asking for a supplemental environmental impact statement, the lead agency remains the town board. There's only one lead agency, and like I said, become a lead agency if a supplemental is required during the process. See, the lead agency is charged with getting an environmental impact statement done. They got the environmental impact statement done, and if no other agency requires a supplemental, then nobody else becomes lead agency.
So, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I just wanted to ask that the lead agency examined a PDD. We're charged with examining a PRD, so we're still involved.
Yeah, that was the whole exercise
Yeah,
that you
right.
hired your
Right.
consultant to determine, right? The comparison of the PDD application versus your PRD, and whether or not the changes required a supplemental.
Correct.
And in June, your consultant recommended and you voted that it did not require a supplemental. So now we are continuing with the process as an involved agency with your guided by your adopted DEIS and FEIS from the town board and the agency. You still, of course, have to make your own findings as an involved agency before you act.
Every involved agency has to make their own findings. So, Robin, for example,
No,
the
no,
health
no,
department.
Okay, I'm just following this through. So we are just, all right, so does that, it doesn't change anything in terms of our responsibilities being lead versus involved at
Well,
this
you're still
point?
required,
I understand we still are required to do a finding statement.
okay.
Because as an involved agency, every involved agency has a right under secret to do a finding statement.
Right, absolutely. And the whole function of your supplemental review was to see whether or not you thought additional.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just asking now, does that change any of our obligations being lead versus just being involved?
Well, if we were lead agency, if we required a supplemental, then we would do our own
Right,
secret.
then you would do it,
Yeah,
then
then we
you would do an
become
environmental
So
impact
there's no
statement on
different-
the additional changes or actions that you felt
So
required that.
it doesn't change really our responsibility at this point, thank you, Ray. It doesn't change our responsibilities at this point, whether we're lead or we still have the same obligations. I'm just.
Well, that's why I wanted to make sure everybody on this board understood where we were, because it got complicated.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we needed some clarity. So I really appreciate Kathleen and Anthony too. Are there any other questions on the process? This complicated process?
I'll ask them privately.
Nothing, Dennis? You all right?
Can the board take this back?
No other questions? Because we have some new people on the board, and I just think it's only fair to educate.
The board, the town board is the lead agency.
The town board
We
remains
would
lead
like back
agency.
to make the vote on it.
No.
No.
They can't.
No, no, they've finished their jobbing, and they're done. Okay. All right, good.
Thanks, God.
No problem.
Hammer's on you. There you go.
So we have a draft report here that I put together. The first page really just gives a description of the project, what's being proposed.
So I have a question.
Sure.
You have 10 workforce housings and 2 off. Didn't we decide that we wanted all 12 on?
Yes.
That's correct. I was just stating what the proposal by the applicant was, and.
So this is the applicant's description.
Yes, and when we get to the Long Island Workforce Housing, we'll have this discussion about whether you want all 12 on site. So that's correct.
So these are all the clear definitions of all of the accessory buildings, et cetera.
Yep. And the open space requirement, which we'll get into more detail in the report. I started off with the referral comments just because they tend to be rather hefty. So we did get comments from the Conservation Board. Just to point out the second one, the big thing with the Conservation Board is to make a determination as to whether or not there are any jurisdiction for wetlands. This project doesn't have any wetlands within their jurisdiction of development. In fact, the closest wetlands to the development, there's only a small pocket of wetlands to the north, and that is roughly half a mile away from the development. And same thing with the surface waters of Weesuck Creek, also about a half a mile from the development at its closest point. So Marty's acknowledging in this report that his office doesn't have any jurisdiction over the project.
And I have some confusion, because looking at number 14 in their referral section.
Okay.
And number 16 in the referral section, they say it has to come back to them for certain studies and for certain issues. So so they do have some regulatory authority over the project. It's not as to the wetlands, but it's as to 14, which was the floristic surveys and field surveys, and 16, which has to do with the southern pine beetle assessments of invasive species. So is that a correct statement?
They will often make statements in their advisory reports. I would say that they do not have to go back to the Pine Barrens. We could
Not
certainly, I
Pine
mean, I
Barrens,
meant the
Conservation.
Conservation Board, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Now, we could certainly take their recommendation and make them a requirement if we so agree with any of them. But
I was just looking at the inconsistency, because
Well, I
it
think
says.
number
yeah.
2 really speaks to it. There's no jurisdiction.
And 14 and 16,
They're recommendations.
they are recommendations.
they're not.
And if
The
we
word
adopt
that-
them, we can include them as conditions.
But you could certainly,
Oh,
these
well,
are,
just is, yeah.
these are advisory comments, and so if the board's inclined to agree with something that comes out of the Conservation Board's recommendations, that makes sense. We could incorporate them into any findings or into a condition of approval. Oh, thanks for my water. Appreciate that. So the Conservation Board, as you can see, went through a whole series of recommendations and made some comments that I will at some point, in my later version of this, will incorporate into recommendations for conditions.
So can we just, as we go along, if we have some questions
Yeah,
for
yeah,
clarification?
please, please.
So on 5, they say that the location is within the watershed of Lisa Creek. So what does that mean, within the watershed?
Well, I mean, just that there's a whole,
Mapping?
well, I would, that Weesaw Creek, which is to the south, it's in the watershed of there, so there'll be,
The whole area contributes.
the whole area contributes, yes.
To a certain extent, waters to the Weesaw Creek.
Right. Doesn't indicate wetlands. It
No,
just,
I
yeah.
don't- Yeah, no,
So
I know
that's-
we've already
So it's all part
established
of, it's all part of a larger ecological system
that feeds into,
that feeds into the Weesaw Creek.
okay,
Yeah.
got it. Thank you.
Which means that we may want to look at what happens on the property and its impact on Weesuck Creek. And I know there've been some comments about dispersion analysis to see where anything that goes in the ground on the project, what happens to it when it hits that watershed and eventually hits Weesuck Creek.
100%.
Okay.
Now, for something like this, wasn't this covered in one of the environmental impact statements? Like the effect of the.
Oh, yes,
water flow
everything,
on-
it's,
I mean, it's not like this is new information that we have to react.
no, but, and to be fair to the Conservation Board, or really any other agency, a lot of them are not looking at the environmental impact statement when they're reviewing maps. So,
And this is their first referral? Second?
second referral, yeah. So they're not really looking at the environmental impact statement to see what was covered under there. So, you know, when they talk about, for example, best management practices for the maintenance of the golf course, we know that the environmental impact statement has addressed that because it was required to address it during the process, so.
But then they're not referencing your FEIS.
Right,
You have the benefit of knowing that, they don't.
okay. Okay, going through, Robin asked about 14.
There was 2 questions here. I was just curious. When was the last test hole data gathered on this? How far, how long?
Have to go back and look. Do you remember when the last test hole data was done?
Well, first of all, from a geologic standpoint, it doesn't change. We did meet with the town engineer yesterday to go through their
Why don't you just come up?
I'm sorry.
Wayne, do you want to come up, Wayne, to the other chair, or are you happy back there? And just identify
Yes,
yourself.
Chick Voorhees, Nelson Pope and Voorhees. I've been involved on behalf of the applicant throughout the process. So we have at least 2 test holes on the property. We are going to obviously a sewage treatment plant, so we don't have to do the number of test holes that the health department would typically require. So it's mainly for the purpose of drainage, and we'll be working with the town engineer to make sure that we have adequate test holes to satisfy them. But as you know from the site, the soils are generally sandy.
Okay, was that
Yeah,
was
that
in the
was-
engineering, okay, we're on to the
No,
engineering.
no. This is still in conservation, number
Oh,
8.
okay.
That was number 8 of conservation.
Okay.
The other question I had was their number 13 of conservation, which was something I could not remember having read, whether the site disturbance calculations included the maintenance access paths. And I did not remember that, if that calculation was done. That's their number 13.
Gotcha.
so-
Well, with respect to the future maintenance access paths, that would, the clearing would have to take that into consideration and be compliant with. In other words, that would be part of the development area, so there would not,
So that would be
That was one of
included-
Marty Shea's comments right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So we made sure to address that. I mean, he brought that up, probably
Okay,
we
and
met with
that's
him 5 years ago.
That's in the current calculations?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you, that's the question. I
Good.
couldn't, there's been so many calculations, you could, I gotta check.
Okay. Okay, Robin, any more on the, anybody else on the conservation? Any comments or questions? Let's go on to the engineering.
Okay. So the Rayner Group, who is the consulting engineer on behalf of the town, had a whole series of, and like you said, they met with the town engineer yesterday to go over some of this stuff. A lot of it is very, very technical in their review. Obviously, we would make impose conditions that they comply with the engineer's comments. Did the board have anything specific in there? Typically,
Nothing happens until the engineers are happy. We all know that.
that's the general rule of thumb. So if anybody had anything specific in there.
It didn't.
Well, when I read this, it kind of stuck out to me, the drainage design is deemed incomplete.
Let me clarify that for you, actually, okay? Because I did speak to Vinnie Gaudiello, who did the report. There is more than, as you could see, they did a review here. So I took issue with the word incomplete. I don't know that that was the accurate word to use. The mapping, I think, was not to what he would like to see in terms of how the information is presented. But certainly there was more than enough information there for him to do a full-blown review of the application. And at the end of the day, this board isn't going to stamp the plans until the engineer has plans that they've approved. So,
But this is a heads up, though, I mean, from
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
saying, I want XYZ, and it's not there.
yeah, the wording wasn't a great choice of words. That's why I
It kind of surprised me, incomplete was.
Well, considering you have, 3 pages
Yeah.
worth of comments, so,
Right.
That's common, though.
yeah,
We get a lot of these reports where I do not recommend engineering approval, but we know it's going to be contingent upon certain modifications.
100%.
Well, for this one, we want to be.
Oh,
Wanna
yeah.
be accurate.
Okay, on number 19, are these calculations, again, I apologize if it's sitting in the report, because I...
Are you 19 under engineering?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
I'm still on engineering.
So that's page 8 of 22, or whatever.
Whatever, it's-
Yep.
everybody's printing different.
yeah.
It's
the next
speaking
step.
to earthwork calculations for identifying whether it required importation or exploitation of soils or balanced excavations. Is that in the preliminary, or is that yet to be done?
Let me just-
Number 19.
I don't know the answer to that question, actually. Maybe you could,
Yeah, I can indicate, we did earthwork calculations as part of the EIS as well as the subdivision mapping. So to the extent that we need to provide Vinnie with more information, we will do that.
Yeah, it seems, again, it's just an inference here that they don't have it, so perhaps...
I know.
Perhaps we need to get it to him in a separate form or whatever, so that he, because this is a solid inference. Should be prepared, not that it's inadequate or it's missing numbers. It's saying should be prepared, which just infers to me that it hasn't been done. And if it has...
It has been done, it's part of the
Then-
application. and
Then perhaps we've got to get it
Right.
to the top of the pile so he sees it.
I can tell you, Vinnie was at the meeting yesterday when we met with the town engineer.
Yeah.
Met with Chris and Tom and Vinnie. So we went through all of their comments.
Yeah,
And there were a
it's-
couple of things that were just clarifications. One big thing was sheet size. They've agreed that the sheet size that we used is okay for preliminary. And one other big item was the,
Those sheet sizes?
Matt's making some copies for the board now, smaller ones.
yeah.
Maybe in like.
And the other big thing
full
was
size
the
or
design
queen size.
storm,
Yeah.
which we had worked out with Christine and John LaRosa several years ago. Christine had notes to that effect, and Vinnie was not aware of that. So there were a lot of
Okay,
things
so
that,
19 you'll...
19 we will take care of, and any others we discussed with
That was
them
the only one
yesterday.
that said didn't exist. The other ones, had some existence.
Okay, no more in engineering, let's move on to trails.
Yep, you have the Trails Advisory. They sort of sketched it out for, that comes directly from the Trails Advisory, their sketch there. So, just to summarize, you can see that they're looking at getting a trail connection starting from up here, sort of basically coming through what was Spinney Road, coming through the greens, the golf greens, ultimately to make its way down to Lewis Road.
That's Suffolk County Park, Nature Preserve, that lower green part?
Yeah.
According to this.
Yeah,
Anthony,
well,
do you have
according
this? Do you have one of these?
No, the smaller parcels, the small gray parcels are.
Oh, yeah, those are some out parcels that apparently are owned by Suffolk County Parks. But basically, that's their, that's what they're looking for to come through. And I know that the EIS and the FEIS address trails. I think Chick was going to talk to the board about that after you get, have a discussion, if you had some comments about what they're looking for.
So the Trails Advisory would like it to go from north to south.
Yeah, basically, that's correct.
What does the dotted line mean?
It was just identifying 3 different stretches of trail starting from the north, so that's how they distinguish them.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on these Suffolk County Parks Nature Reserve parcels?
Yeah, I'm going to write this down. As far as I know, they are just out parcels that happen to be owned by the county.
No buildings or anything like
No,
that?
no, nothing like
These
that.
odd shapes?
They're old file maps.
Yeah, old
Oh,
file
they're old file
maps.
maps.
From tax, the whole area is sprinkled with those. There
Any
are probably
possi-
hundreds of them.
Any possibility of routing trails through them?
Well, to be quite honest, I'd like to see what the applicant has to say. The way the code works is that you're really trying to use existing trail networks to get a trail connection. I don't know how great an idea it is to have a trail going through
Exactly.
the golf course.
Yeah, I was gonna
say that, like, hello.
So that's.
You gotta wear a hard
issue,
hat.
But I think Chick was prepared to discuss that with the board. That's why I had them come today. That way we could have some discussions as we go along.
So we did have a comment similar to that during the EIS process. And in the FEIS, we identified exactly what Anthony is saying, ways to connect to trails in the area. The town owns property down here and owns property here. And it just didn't really make sense to us to go between this use area and the backyards of the homes on Spinney Road and try and get up to here and meander through a golf course. First of all, it's not safe, and second of all, it's really not necessary. These are all open space trails that connect with contiguous open space in public ownership throughout this area. And this would connect through the Parlato property, which would be proposed for dedication. And there's also trails to the north that go through the Hills North property. So certainly we can work on providing a trailhead either on the south part of this property or on the existing town property. If you check the GIS, this is all owned by the town. So that was our opinion, and it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to cut new trails that don't exist to get to Spinney Road, which does exist, but really wouldn't serve any purpose. Certainly the northern part of Spinney Road can remain.
And then cut over, right?
Yeah, cut
Chlorine, do you
over.
have any
A lot of
more insight
options.
into this?
Well, I think,
Of course. Hand it over to you.
I think one of the ideas was to create a trail for the community that's going to live here, not just necessarily for the rest of us. And
Oh, for the population that's going to live in here,
yes,
right?
yes,
Mhm.
and while the code suggests you want to connect trails to existing trails, to try to pre-plan when you have an application, because other land might eventually become available to create more trails. So just to say, well, it doesn't connect to anything right now, the advisory board says, well, but what if we can use other land? So that's sort of their big picture.
So just to clarify in my mind, what they're saying is that this is not necessarily open trails road. These are trails,
Well, they would want them to be open, but by the same token, that's an amenity for the community to have some walking trails. You know, it used to be people didn't want that, and now a lot of the developers realize that that's an amenity that might be an enhancement for a development.
so that's a different take on
Yeah, no,
on
that
this.
is. No question.
It doesn't seem to make any sense to me to put a trail through a semi-private community and a golf course, when you have an alternative.
Yeah.
And as Chick just pointed out, I think that's a pretty good alternative.
Dick, when you say trailhead, what, you're just envisioning like a small parking?
Exactly.
apron with the
Yeah, you've seen them all around with little signs.
Yeah.
And that would be great, because it would direct people to the existing town
You guys,
property.
you guys would construct that?
I believe we had offered to do that.
But on town land?
What, pardon?
County and town.
County on town land?
So what do you think, Lorianne, that a trail along the town road would also?
I think we can go back to the advisory board
Right.
and, you know, give them an alternative. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not in a position, I'm not on that board to,
Right.
Well, then maybe it's even more productive to have someone from their,
From there coming.
them to meet with the Trails Advisor and show them concepts. What Chick's laying out seems to make a lot more sense.
Right.
yeah, I mean, they meet monthly, I believe on Tuesdays
Yeah, we'll look
in
to
the
schedule that.
afternoon, so.
Yeah, that'd be,
And with the,
they might not be aware of like a lot of these.
and also where you were
I would think,
suggesting. to put
they're using the town GIS system, so
Yeah.
I'm sure they know that those are town, well, owned
Town
lands.
town and county parcels, right?
And then this areas where you're suggesting to add some type of stop, or what is it, car stop, or is?
A trailhead.
Trailhead.
Right.
And the locations of the trailheads.
If I can comment, these are all out parcels, as was indicated before, old file maps. Not all of them are in county ownership.
Okay.
Some are
Several of them are
private.
private ownership. And we recently encountered a situation where the county actually owned the property, was not in any or their nature preserve or whatever, and they put it out for auction.
Recently.
Yes.
And we were able to acquire it. So just because it's in county ownership doesn't mean it will remain in county ownership. So, you know, the trail connection to these parcels in itself, although trails people seem to identify something broadly, this is not a place necessarily. I think they were trying to get from point A to point B. The problem I have is going to point B is, you know, you can't cross the Sunrise Highway here, and where do you go from this point? But nonetheless, it was always envisioned, you know, when the county bought, this is the Lynx property. The Lynx property, and this is the town property, which is disturbed and then at one point, I think it was even this board's recommendation that we consider acquiring that town property and incorporate it into our project. That was in the East Quogue GIS, that recommendation. That didn't come to fruition. The town board doesn't want us to be involved with their property, but that is disturbed substantially. And that's the other thing, is we're in Pine Barrens, we don't want to disturb extra land. If, again, the subdivision regulations, as was noted, is to take advantage of existing trails. And so creating a whole new trail system over here behind property owners in between fairways in a smaller corridor, whereas if it's on this side, it will achieve the goals of both communities, the overall community and this proposal plan, to get and utilize it in an area where it is open.
Is it town all the way up on the other side?
Town owns pretty much the parcel here all the way up to the top.
All the way up.
And then all of these parcels are all county and town ownership.
Okay, all right, that explains, that's,
I think it's much more
that's
logical.
clarification. Well, yeah, and you can have a conversation with them.
One of the sentences in the first paragraph, and I'm confused about.
Where are you, Gloria?
The first
Trails
paragraph
Advisory
of
Board?
Trails,
Mhm.
the last sentence, the parcels north of Sunrise Highway are inaccessible to future residents of this subdivision, which is what you just said, and the Parlato lots are hardly suitable to trail use due to the ongoing problem of ATV use. And I'm not sure what that they're talking about there, if that's the property that Wayne and Chick are suggesting, where we should put a trail.
Well, you know, ATVs
That's
and
further east.
illegal
I
use
know.
ATVs is a common thing throughout the entire area, and these are the Parlato properties.
Oh, way over there.
Okay.
Way over there.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what properties we were talking
Yeah,
about.
they're the ones all the way.
Okay.
So there, I mean, of course, this is old file map as well as this property here, and so there is some dirt roads that actually gives access, as you know, there's a radio tower and so on up there. So there are existing trails, so to speak, dirt roads. So, but that's another thing, is connecting, you know, an overall program, which I think if the Trails Advisory sat down and started thinking about that.
It could map something like
Probably
that.
be like, where are we going? What's the system that we're trying to connect to? So,
Also, we have a trail behind us, and we see a lot of horses. We see horses using it where I am. And also, motorbikes. They tend to come there, and I scream at them, but they don't hear me because they're too loud. So, I mean, putting it through the community and having that situation there would be really detrimental. And I think if you have the one trail going along the community but not part of it, is excellent. I don't know what the town trails board could tell us that would tell us that it's more advantageous to have it within a community as opposed to have it on a trail that's presently there to some extent. And I think it's a good idea for trails. I think it's essential. But I think it's much nicer walking through forest and stuff like that than somebody's garage you're looking at.
And they're gonna meet with the Trails Advisory Board.
Right.
Discuss the alternatives.
Yeah.
They'll be open.
So I think we've talked about that.
Yep.
Let's move on to the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. Robin, you had a question on that one? Oh, it's incomplete, well. And that was the word you took issue with?
No,
that was-
mine is DEC.
Okay.
I'm waiting.
Is
for
deemed
DEC.
incomplete because they want,
Yeah, they're looking for additional information.
And the CNRs that they're talking about here, these are just CNRs for water availability? Or
Where is that?
Those are the health department
CNRs, those are the health department CNRs.
Yes.
It's in that list.
Yes.
SPDs.
Yeah, this is pretty typical. You know, for example, they say New York State DEC town wetlands approvals. Well, there's no jurisdiction of wetlands actually in the project. So the applicant should have, you know,
I don't know if you've seen their form letters, but they basically have a checklist.
And that's
And they
it?
issue notices of incomplete and check all of these things, and they remain incomplete until you get them all. So it's kind of an interesting system, but we're following up on all of these items.
Okay, secret determination's already been made, right? Until the findings
Yeah,
are
well-
adopted.
secret determinations to be made.
Right. But not complete because our findings still have to come in.
No, that's for the health department. not
Technically,
just
they're supposed to
theirs.
adopt their own
Their
findings.
Yeah,
own.
they gotta
Oh, they do their own
They have to
secret?
do their own, yeah, they're
Every
gonna be required to
agency
do
does.
their own finding statement.
Ah, interesting,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. DEC,
This is where my confusion came in. It says, in a letter dated, provided, and then it says, "Our records indicate that no application for the proposed activity has been received by this office." When does the referral get made to the DEC?
it's the very last sentence in
And
their
then it says
report.
DEC reserves the right to comment on this action if a positive determination of significance. I'm confused at what the process is with DEC.
Okay, so when they say our records indicate that no application has been made for the proposed activity, they're speaking to Chick's team, not our.
Oh, okay, so when are you supposed to make the application?
First, it has to be determined if an application is necessary. The operative law, in large part, is Article 11, which is the Endangered Species Act. So we need to determine if anything triggers an application under Article 11. We've done a number of them, and if you can avoid, one of the main ones is northern long-eared bat.
Yeah.
If you construct just during the construction window, then you don't trigger the need for an Article 11 application, and it's found to be essentially no application or no jurisdiction. We don't trigger wetlands. They will review the SWIP, or the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, but only after it's accepted by the town. And we will contact them to determine if a mining permit is needed based on movement of soil. So all of these things are in our court, and we will be following up with them. Quite honestly, this is the first time I've seen the July 30th letter from DEC. So we will make contact with them and determine what's needed.
So you send them I'm sorry. You
That's
send them
okay.
the application, and they will decide if they're taking jurisdiction under Article 11.
Correct. Or we will either avoid or mitigate
So they'll give a
some way,
non-delegate, or they'll just say
so that there's no jurisdiction.
no jurisdiction.
Right, exactly.
And does it get folded under the New York State DEC about the Conservation Board's comments about southern pine beetle and some of the other invasive species?
Not really. I'm not aware that southern pine beetle comes up under Article 11. The other species they list here, and we will have to address that.
But that's a new phenomenon, that the
Right.
southern pine beetle devastation that's
Yeah,
been
it's a
happening.
natural phenomenon, or at least it's occurring in nature at this time.
It's moving north because of the warmth.
Exactly.
Oh, so I just wondered if there was some parallel feed-in from this comment into the New York State
It's
DEC.
probably not in their requirements, because they haven't realized.
not in their
that they
wheelhouse,
They
right.
should be looking at
Looking
it.
at it.
We've made the property accessible to both the Pine Barrens Commission and DEC to assess the damage by the southern pine beetle. And have even gone to the extent of allowing cutting of trees or things that might be needed to help control the spread. Obviously, a large part of the property has been impacted, and that just becomes a natural condition. You have less pine trees, and other vegetation will succeed in those areas.
Have they
So
come,
it doesn't really affect
have they been on the
anything.
property?
Yes, they have.
They have,
Several years ago, yes.
several years ago.
Yes.
But not recently.
Correct. But we've provided access. We look to help their assessment of the situation.
Because that's number 19 of the conservation. Going back to that number 16, who gets the invasive species rapid assessment and response plan? Because where does, that's number 16. Is that a DEC, or is that conservation, or?
It's number
where's it?
16 back on the
Yeah,
conservation.
because we were
Page
referring
one, yeah.
to what goes under DEC. I don't know who this goes to. Because I see number 19 goes to DEC, which is the back to bats. But, and this has to do with the southern pine beetles. Is that a DEC
That was my
application?
question, that was my very question.
Oh,
That was my very question, where does it happen?
where's-
Who
where's
responds
six-
to this?
where's-
I'm not aware that the DEC looks for that, but I do see under 16 on page 4 that
Right.
Conservation Board is looking for an invasive
Yeah.
species rapid assessment and response plan.
Right, so who?
I don't know the precedent for that. You know, we're
Okay.
certainly
Yeah, I was
willing
gonna say,
to.
that's the first time I've seen them.
Well, that was
But
why I
that's
brought
be-
up 16.
That's because things are changing in the environment.
no
So can
question.
you make a note of
Yeah,
it?
totally.
Okay, because I don't know if that's a DEC or a conservation, I don't know where it goes.
Yeah, and SECR says you're supposed to look at climate change mitigation as part of the plan.
So if we can take a look and see where 16 goes, if it's DEC or somewhere else.
Any other comments on the New York State DEC? Is that calculation correct? Loss of 130 acres of forested area?
I will have to check. It seemed
Anthony, do you
to
see
not
what
be
that is
accurate
under
to me, but
New York State DEC? They might have taken this off when the town did secret, right?
Yeah.
Are they getting this info?
Yeah, well, that's a good question.
But let's question that, okay?
Sure.
turtle comment, well, we have bats and turtles.
Okay.
We
No
like
more.
bats. We like bats and turtles.
They're
Bats and
important.
turtles.
They're
We've done many projects with wildlife sweeps to make sure
Yeah.
that if you're clearing areas, put up snow fencing, clear an area, assess an area, relocate turtles that may be in those areas, and then proceed with clearing. So that's certainly something we can talk about. It's relatively common to do that.
I'm particularly fond of mantled basket tails.
And they are fond of you, too.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the fire prevention. Anthony, do you want to walk that down?
Yeah, I mean, they made pretty typical statements there. They didn't really give us much. I would say that, I don't know if it's necessarily coming out of fire prevention, but the fire district who didn't give us comments yet, and the water authority, we will locate hydrants that will be necessary, which they didn't really specify at this point, but we will, at the final stage, usually have the location for fire hydrants and stuff like that. Suffolk County Department of Economic Development Planning, so that's the one that we were just talking about where it's a default approval because they didn't act within 45 days of receiving the referral from us.
I'm sorry, I don't have that.
Planning
Is that
commission,
in
we
your
don't have
new-
that in here.
It's there. There's
Shaded.
nothing there.
There's nothing there, it's just.
Page 11.
Page 11 is just
Shaded.
grayed out.
No, Anthony, the planning commission staff prepared a staff report.
There was,
What's that?
no, it was in.
Prepare staff. Was there a staff report from planning commission?
Okay.
There was one that was prepared, but
It's still an internal document.
it's an internal document because it wasn't officially voted on. Yep. So that's what we'll have to state for that grayed out area. I left it graded because we didn't get comments. The same thing with the Central Pine Barrens
Yeah,
Commission.
you got it.
We're going to get those comments next week, and I'll make sure you guys get those comments directly, as opposed to just putting them in a report. and-
Right, but incorporate it in here as
Oh,
well.
100%.
So
But I'll
we
make
don't
su-
have disparate pieces floating around.
No, we'll make sure that goes in there.
But the letter that we was sent from the planning commission, that's not here, will that be included
Yes.
with the comment about they couldn't make it, they couldn't vote or whatever? how-
Of the.
However they said it.
Yeah.
Include the letter,
Put
include
the
the
letter.
language in the letter, or include the letter.
Yep, we did get a letter, so we will put
Yeah,
that in there.
which confused me, I had no idea what it meant.
It confused me too, because I had thought that they voted at the last meeting, so it turns out they didn't have, that they voted, they didn't have the votes for it, so,
Right, I was told that they'd approved it too,
yeah.
without the underlying
Yeah,
rationale.
so I was confused as well.
I was at the meeting. It was, they voted 7-3, but they needed 8 votes for it to carry based on the quorum needed.
Right.
Oh, I see,
On a board of 15 members.
I see, so they didn't have a quorum.
Right, so it really is a default approval. That's Kathleen said.
Yes.
Their statute actually says deemed approved, so it's not default per se, but.
Well, it is.
I can just tell you my experience with the Suffolk County Planning Department and Planning Commission. For all my years, they will never admit that they missed any time period. They'll never say that they didn't do anything. They give you the letter, like you said, is that essentially it's a non-action. They didn't act in the 45 days that they had to do. They will not go and say, what does that mean? They leave that up to the town and us to try to make sure that we remind them what their statute says and that it's deemed approved. But I'm just pointing that out.
Yeah.
That it is deemed approved as submitted to them.
Right, it says that the commission, after study and deliberation, was unable to render a determination on the merits of the referral as the necessary votes were unavailable to carry a resolution relative thereto.
So they don't finish the sentence and say, and thus it's deemed. They'd rather not say
They
that.
ran out of paper.
Maybe one day when there's proper representation from the East
I was
End,
just going to
from
say.
Southampton and East
East
Hampton.
Hampton.
That would help.
It would help
Yeah.
if
It would
if you
be
could
nice.
get somebody to serve
You need somebody that carries
the local interests.
the local interest.
Right. All right, so you're then going on to public comments,
Then we go
right?
into public comments,
Right.
which are pretty straightforward.
That's one area we don't have to review.
We can stipulate to that
We've
one.
read it all and heard it all, and we'll hear
But
some
there's
more.
some stuff,
some
there's some stuff in there that I don't know where else it should be going, like the dispersion, the nitrogen loading and sonar dispersion analysis.
In other words, how do you take
From
that
here.
kind of valid comment and turn it into, well, you turn it into a condition, I guess, if it's necessary?
Yeah, if the board is inclined to.
Well, it's something that we've been asking.
And site plan condition?
Yeah.
Well, but we could, well, it would have
Is
to
that
come
part
out
of
of site
finding
plan,
statement?
right?
The site plan, yeah.
Would that come out of site plan when it's been?
That'd have to
isn't
come
that
out of
has-
330, yeah.
Hasn't that been asked for already as a part of
It
our
has.
report? I mean, that's,
I'd like to have a conversation with the board pursuant to attorney-client discussions at the end of your
Great.
written session,
Oh,
if you
okay.
so
Yeah.
inclined.
Thanks, we
Okay.
will, absolutely.
that's,
Yeah.
tells me to shut up. We
Okay.
just change Gold Coast to golf. And then I'll shut up.
Nothing, okay.
So completeness review and secret, is that where you are?
Yep. So that was an important part of the preliminary application, is your secret process. The first part of it, and that's what we hired B. Lang Associates for, was two components. Number one, to assist the board in making the determination as to whether or not a supplemental was required, and then B, to do the findings, which he's working on. With respect to the supplemental, as you know and as stated in here, the criteria is to identify changes to the project or the submission of new information that would result in a potentially significant environmental impact that wasn't already discussed or analyzed under the FEIS. The conclusion, and I go through several pages here, up to page 16, is what it does is it just outlined every step of the process that we took to get
Well,
to that point.
that's important, Anthony, that's very good.
And so we did that to the point when in June you made a determination that a supplemental would not be required. Then
But
on-
we asked for additional information.
You did ask for additional information, and again, we'll have that discussion with Kathleen.
Okay.
Yeah. But the second component to that, on the bottom of page 16, is having to do with the finding statement. And so I outlined the criteria for doing a finding statement, which is what Mike Bonji from B. Lang Associates is working on currently.
Now,
Correct.
we're going to have a lot of work to do on the 24th.
Yes.
Is there any way that we can have a review before, like come in a couple of hours before the session?
Well, one option would be to hold them, which we have done in the past, is to hold a morning work session on the 24th,
Mhm.
a 10 a.m. session, just to focus on this.
Or
It
the
makes for a
the
long day,
findings.
but it's maybe worth the effort since we're on deadline day.
I agree with you. It is a deadline.
10 o'clock works for me. I'll be here.
October?
What
October
about you, Dennis?
24th.
Can you do 10 a.m. on the 24th for work
Yeah,
session?
sure, I'm
Yes.
going to be
Yeah.
there at 1, so I can come at 10. Well, we'll
That way
be at
any-
the trade parade then.
Yes.
And it'll be just devoted to this, there are no other applications.
Yeah, no, we would just,
Okay, so you'll alert Mike?
absolutely.
Maybe Mike can send us,
Well, I'd like to have something a week beforehand.
Yeah.
right.
And that way, when you come in on the 24th, you have had a week to look at it.
That would be helpful. I mean, we are smart, but we've got a lot of information. This is the
So-
single largest application in a generation, and so
Does that have
we
to be
need to-
noticed, the work session?
Yeah, that's fine.
Do we have enough time to
Okay.
notice it? So work session, the 24th at 10 a.m.
Okay. Okay, Anthony, so you,
Then we talk about the open space, parkland, and accessory recreational uses. The open space requirement is for 65%. This project meets that.
Now you're in site plan, right?
Well, it's still part of the subdivision.
The open space.
Open space, yeah, because it's a subdivision requirement. 65% open space, reservation of parkland and trails. So as we had trails discussion already, as you know, we have some options that we're going to look at. In terms of satisfying the park requirement, we do have the Trails Advisory recommendations. If we go in another direction, we'd have to assess the trailhead and how that would contribute to the, how does that fit into the park recreation requirement? Right now, the fee, based on 118 lots, you don't assess a park and recreation fee for the affordable units. It's $10,701.60 per lot, for a total of $1.2 million.
Aren't they providing a non-site recreational amenity?
There's been debate about that. The reality is it's a private.
It's private.
And
For the residents of the,
for the residents of just the subdivision.
Not the community.
They still get the benefit, the argument is, at least how it's presented to me, is they still get the benefit of utilizing all the town's other facilities, and
we better direct a lot of this conversation to Kathleen. She's going to have to maybe do a little bit of research, because it's a very
you might be right.
Slippery slope is what we can require through park fees and.
Can we reserve that for
I'll
discussion?
I'll double check town law, Dennis.
Yeah, just how things have been happened in the past. I can think of like half a dozen projects that have provided on-site private recreational amenities.
But open to the public?
Open to the public?
No, think about it. The purpose, the authority for us to expect park fee is that they're creating new residences, new demand for park services. And their response is, well, we're creating this demand for parkland. However, we're satisfying that demand through our on-site recreational amenity. And therefore, our obligation is discharged. I think that's.
So oftentimes you might see a playground in the middle of a subdivision, and that would typically satisfy your park and rec. If the board allowed it to be, that would satisfy your park and recreation.
Sometimes we've requested it in certain subdivisions
Right.
where there'd be, say, 20 families.
Right.
We've requested that they consider a play area
Right.
for families or tennis court.
Exactly.
Yeah, most
I would like to reserve
most
this
most
conversation.
projects don't form HOAs, so therefore they have to turn it over to some entity. It's usually the town that manages. I'm thinking about the pocket park we did it behind PC Richards 15 years ago.
Right.
They don't have an HOA, but they built, instead of paying a fee, they built that park, and it's like, well, here, town, you administer it, because we don't have any mechanism to do that.
We're not going to be.
But in this case, they have an HOA.
Okay, let's
Can
discuss
we
it further.
discuss?
But
yeah.
Kathleen will.
Right.
Get the
Yeah,
statutory language.
Could you please? Thank you. We hold that.
okay. The workforce housing?
Yep, workforce housing. Oh, and just to point out in the rest of it, just a little reminder again about the accessory nature of the golf course use having been determined by the zoning board.
The zoning board of appeals.
So that's that discussion there. The Long Island Workforce Housing Act.
Now, before you get there.
Oh, yes.
Can we just go to the statement here further? There is last paragraph of the section we were just on, last
page?
sentence.
Page number?
I'm sorry, it was the
18
section
probably.
along a different.
18.
About the location of the open space?
Well, given the substantial amount of improvements adjacent, the activities can invert loss of natural vegetation within the open space areas.
Yep.
Could you-
Yep. We would have to ask the applicant as part of the application process or as part of the approval to indicate what protective measures they would incorporate to ensure that the development areas don't encroach into the open space areas that are immediately adjacent to it, because that's you know, a
That's
risk.
what you would, okay.
Yep.
Thank you for the clarification.
Just make a note on that for
Yeah.
clarification.
And then we have the Long Island Workforce Housing Act, as you know. They're required by this board to construct 12 units. They were initially proposing 10 units on-site, and then 2 units off-site. They're proposing the 10 units down here, adjacent to a maintenance building. And I believe this board wanted all 12 constructed on site. This board needs to make a determination exactly how they want these units constructed.
I think the conversation was incorporated into the development.
Right.
Not separate and apart, and all 12 units on site.
Well, wait a minute now, how can you have year-round housing incorporated into a seasonal development that's going to be shut down?
Well, not down there, not by the maintenance building.
Yeah, that's outside the, isn't that outside the?
It's outside the
Yeah, well,
gated
that's-
area.
I think that was the reasoning. The other big factor is, I'm assuming there's going to be a hefty homeowner's fee for the use of the golf course, which we wouldn't want to burden.
Well, they
Not
wouldn't
good.
be,
They
they'd be
wouldn't be.
excluded from that.
We would, so. we
Long
can't
Island
have-
Housing would,
The workforce
eliminate
housing
that.
has to be outside of has to be outside of the project proper.
well, we'll have to talk about it.
We're going
but
to have
that's
a discussion about
because-
that, because it's been the policy of this board, and I remember another application that came here, which we held up and discussed for quite a few weeks, about the integration of the workforce housing into the development, and we had a little pushback from the developer also on that, so I think that's a discussion.
But that wasn't seasonal housing.
That was, it
And we're
was
not
four,
sure-
it was 4 units in Watermill in that big
Was it
project.
development?
Yeah.
Within the development.
Yeah.
And it's full-time, year-round.
I think we have to
That makes a lot
discuss
more sense.
sticking.
Well, let's do that. Let's talk about it, because where's the gate on this property?
Gatehouse will be over here.
And where are you putting this?
The portables outside.
So it's outside the gate?
Yes.
Because at some point in November, that gate's going to be closed.
Well, the
isn't it?
gate, people have passes to get in and out of the gate, or a gatehouse. I'm sure that they're not going to leave the rest of the development without anybody supervising it, or, we don't know what their processes are going to be for maintenance of that property year-round. I'm sure they're not just going to lock it all up.
But is the,
That's-
I have a that's my question. Is the workforce housing directly required for the development? In other words, the people that get it will be the people who work on the development?
No.
Or will it
No.
be general?
No.
So I find it very odd that we have a trade parade and a backup, and we're putting workforce housing westward when we should be putting it eastward. My recommendation is not to put any there and to put it out east,
Well, it's a requirement
because
by
that's where
code.
the people going.
That's
But,
required.
but for this particular
I know,
application,
but
it's
It doesn't,
required.
you know, where it goes here, it doesn't really matter. I
Well,
think what
it does
matters is that you're not affecting the traffic problem, one, and you're having people that may work out in Montauk or even in Town Hall or in a
That's
school
right.
district
Sure.
coming from East Quogue. So we're arguing that it's not in the development or in the development. I don't really care. This is a much greater issue. So let's look at this and say, so it's not in the development. I don't think it's going to be noticeable.
I don't think that, John, I don't think you can go outside, and Kyle could speak to this more, but I think it has to be within that.
School district?
You know, either school district or the general area. I know that the one we did over in Kamakudiko, was it?
I don't
They-
think the Long Island, it's
Yeah.
based on the Long Island Workforce Housing Act. I do not believe it indicates a geographic boundary. I think your options, and I can double check this, are on-site, off-site, or payment in lieu of. I
Right.
know this board obviously does not want to see payment in lieu of.
Right.
I know the planning department has recommended on-site. Ultimately, it's up to you.
Yeah, we
But
wanted
it's-
12
I think
units.
by policy, I think the department likes to keep it within the district.
That's
Instead of
probably-
putting the housing at Watermill and Bridgehampton.
Yeah, well,
By policy, they like to keep it in the district.
So that would be the third discussion, to check
Okay.
the law on that.
So let's go back to that.
site isn't really an issue.
Okay,
Just
APOD.
Real quick, if I could, Diana Weir is aware of this, and you may want to involve her in that discussion. She has had some input into the mix of units and was
Okay.
generally supportive of providing this workforce housing. So just.
Where it is.
Did she have,
But the
did
location.
Diana Ware have a location where she?
No,
Where-
she's
where?
aware of this proposal.
Oh, well, okay.
You
Aware.
Aware. I'll leave that there.
Weir is aware.
Keep going.
Conformance, aquifer, APOD.
Yep, and so this plan conforms to that. We've had that discussion before. They're going to be preserving the 65% of the land that's required on top of, and it's worth pointing out, that an additional 42.40 acres of undisturbed land in the development area due to the clearing restrictions. So,
Is that the Parlato piece?
no,
No.
no. The Parlato piece is part of the 65% that we're preserving. But I'm just saying that on top of the 65%, there are clearing restrictions within the development area itself.
But I was going to ask the question, because it goes, going to this section on existing zoning and applied zoning, if we can pull that into the section closer to the APOD, because I had a little confusion. So you have APOD regulations that sit on the entire piece, and then you're going to have zoning regulations sitting on individual houses?
It's tough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, well, I'll get to it.
Oh, okay, I think
Go
it
on.
maybe should be closer to it, because, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So that's what that section is talking about, is compliance with the APOD regulations and the clearing restrictions, and both from the town's regulations and from the Pine Barrens regulations as well. And then we go on to conformance with the land use zoning and comprehensive plan. As we all know, we've had discussions about the East Quogue study, which talked about resort-style development for this area as an alternative, one that would have, as they said, the least impact on the school district. And so I think that we looked at that before.
Anthony, can we go back to this clearing stuff?
Oh, yeah,
Just a minute. When you talk about the additional, I understand those pieces that are going to be deeded to the town, that gets us to the 65%. Then you've got another 42 acres that are going to be preserved within the development area. Is that just the preserved land on the amenities stuff? And what about each house lot?
That includes some of the house lots as well.
So so there's been a building envelope or a clearing for every lot been defined?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah, I didn't find that.
Correct.
And then we have the subdivision road and circulation. The big thing is that they're proposing 40-foot wide right-of-ways which can't be dedicated to the town. And that's the discussion I think this board wanted to have, is whether or not you want them designed at 50 feet so they could be dedicated at some point, should the, but I don't have an issue.
Well, the 50-foot is just a legal right-of-way. Couldn't we get some sort of reverter, like a 5-foot reverter on each side of the road?
You don't have to build out the
Possible.
50 feet.
No.
That's just, the 50-foot is just a right-of-way. You
Yeah,
don't
we've done that
pavement
before.
50-foot.
It says it in here.
Is that possible?
Yes.
I know that we had proposed 40 feet because there would never be an intention to dedicate this to the town. I don't, sitting with Christine yesterday, there was no issue with that in her opinion, as long as it stays private. As far as a reverter, I would defer to Wayne on something like that.
So the HOH,
You prob-
fire safety and what have you, I mean, the HOH is going to take care of that, as you're saying?
Yeah, it'll meet fire code, it'll meet turning movements and radii and all the necessary road requirements, and the HOA will maintain it, plow it, make sure it's maintained.
Did the fire district did you have any comments from the fire
Our
district?
district did not give us any comments.
There what?
They did not give us any comments,
They didn't, but, so you'll follow up with that.
100%.
I mean, it's a reverter that would probably, in all likelihood, never be triggered, but it would at least, Wayne, do you have any input on this?
Well, you're talking about two different things. One is physical improvements
No.
that are necessary for fire access and everything else, which fully complies, and that's why you have no comments in that regard. But the other is the right-of-way, and that just merely goes to the state law that says a municipality can't accept into their highway system unless it meets 3 rods wide, 49.5 feet. That's state legislation. So if the town were ever to accept the roads in the highway system, and that's what you've got to look at, what's the likelihood here? And the answer is it's not going to happen because of the private nature of the whole resort and seasonality and et cetera, et cetera. So here, the question is having a 40-foot right-of-way versus a 50-foot right-of-way. The reverter, I mean, what you're asking is a potential offer of dedication of a 50-foot right-of-way width. For what purpose, then?
No,
Because the town will never
not the whole
take it over.
40-foot. I'm envisioning a 5-foot.
Yeah, but you're
We've
talking
done it
about
before.
10 feet extra, but you're talking about eventually, for what purpose, is so that the town can take the road into the highway system and meet the state law, and that's the only purpose.
But
It's nothing to do with the physical improvements. The only reason why you have a right-of-way width is if you were putting sidewalks next to roads, you need utilities, and that's why you look at your subdivision regulations have certain road widths for those purposes. Industrial zones, you want 60-foot right-of-way because they anticipate wider roads and having those public improvements on either side. So I don't see that being the case, the necessity. I mean, that's why this whole thing's been designed.
In some ways, it may be better to leave it at 40 feet because then it can't be dedicated.
And that was the other rationale that we've heard from the staff, and you just did this with the project up on Long Springs Road.
Well, it says we have the ability to waive the provisions, so.
Just means it can't be dedicated, which is the intent of the applicant, and
To keep it.
I would guess the highway department probably doesn't want to have to
So-
maintain that whole thing.
So plowing and maintenance and all of
All be
that
done
is
by the
all
HOA.
part of the HOA.
It's going to be closed down when it snows.
Well, sometime maybe.
It will be maintained.
Still have to get fire trucks in there when they burn down.
That's right.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I was
the
being
gate is gonna be
facetious.
open.
Oh, it's hard for me to tell. You mean, would you just put it on the map, or it's not physical? Or
No, it would be,
It's just a map item.
it's a mapping item, and- well, it's a map item, it's a legal instrument.
It's a legal instrument, it's gonna
Saying-
be on the
but-
property.
But I mean, that's fine, I just thought we've done it a lot in the past.
I have to get to that.
Can we talk about Oldfield Road?
Yes.
I'm looking at it here on this map.
Yep.
So Oldfield Road is owned by someone else and has preliminary agreed to grant necessary title. Can you just explain what's going on with that road?
I can speak to that. The Kiyowski family did a conservation opportunity subdivision with this board, and one of the things so that's a mapped street with an offer of dedication on it. They have a bond, which is secured by deeds, because they're a farm family, and with the deeds right now being held, 2 deeds, that they can't sell those properties or convey any properties or build on any of their lots unless and until they post a normal bond and actually build the road. So they haven't done a thing. They're sitting there still farming, and the farm family's doing that. We have an agreement with them that we're going to undertake all those improvements. So they actually get the benefit of not having to do any of the improvements that would allow them to sell and improve their own lots.
But also, do they give you a first right of refusal in terms of if you want to buy that property, you buy that property?
Their lots?
Yeah,
No.
no.
What happens?
Their
if-
lots get built, they're already mapped.
Okay, just asking, I see the purpose of having this, so you have an entrance from Lewis Road. Is that for construction, or is that going to be a permanent entrance?
That's the permanent entrance.
That would be the permanent entrance?
That's a mapped street already.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if they choose not to do this, for whatever reason, you can't come to a number that everybody's happy with or whatever, where else would the access be? if you can't use
Good question.
Oldfield Road?
Well, the answer is, why would the town not accept the offer of dedication if it's going to be built?
No, I thought you needed the permission.
We have
From
the
the
permission,
family.
but in the end, you could also accept the offer of dedication at any time. And you've done this in cases where developers disappeared on you, and you're left with no bond in place. And then the question was, the next developer comes along because you planned, and this goes way back, when you had what used to be the Cracky property. You remember all these subdivisions trying to coordinate streets, and it was like you didn't want each property to have a street. So you're planning a connection of roads. So what happens when one connection doesn't happen in the timing? So there's an ability of you to accept that, in which case you always expect that new owner to have, doing all the improvements that are necessary to bring it up to speed.
So the terminology, I'm just looking at the terminology here, which says they have preliminarily agreed, which just ticks off to me that they can preliminarily disagree and decide
Yeah, I think the point is,
not to
you
do
want
it, and then where are
You
we?
want to see the final agreement at the final map stage. You know, that's go.
So there's one entrance into this?
That's correct.
You don't have an alternate entrance?
Spinney Road.
Emergency.
That was going to be my question.
Spinney Road is a public street, and it goes right to the property, but however, to the
I'm just concerned when it isn't set and you're still in negotiations, which means the same way somebody can say yes, they can also make it very difficult. What happens would be the
right,
next
the
step.
safeguard is the offer of dedication that you have. You can take that, the town can take the offer at any time. Question
But
is,
do you
you
have-
normally don't do it unless all the roads are improved, but
And
we
then
can
who would have
provide the
to improve
guarantee
the
for
road?
all the road
Well, we
improvements.
have bonds,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
the
you
developer's
bond it.
always going to give you.
So where does
Builder
Spinney
bond it.
Road come in?
Spinney Road, if I may, on your map, actually,
They're there, Mike.
Spinney Road
Spin it around.
Yeah.
comes up, and it's improved right up to our property. And it provides access to all these lot owners. One
So
of the
it's an
things early
alternate-
on, and actually back in 2005, when we were proposing the subdivision during the public hearings, we heard from these people, and they didn't want our access to come directly off of that street. And they wanted us to go someplace else, and so we've always sort of honored that, but we've always maintained this is an alternate access, particular for emergency vehicles. If, you know, your point is, if this ever got blocked, there was always another way in.
So what's Oldfield Road?
Oldfield is the mapped road, the Kioski subdivision that comes off of Lewis up to this point. And then we're proposing to connect to that and go north. That's exactly what you proposed when this, the Cracky property was Noble Farms. And actually in the pre-app, back in 2005, you told us to do exactly what is being proposed here. So that's the road connection.
So I think language about that alternate road should be put in and
Yep,
all of
I've got
that. Do you
that,
have
yeah.
that?
Yep, I agree. Then we have the existing zoning versus applied zoning. So this will be sort of confusing on this map, but it's a cluster plan, so you have to apply setbacks to the lots. And so there are a variety of lot sizes and lot configuration. So the applicant will have to put together, like they would on any subdivision, a chart that identifies, you know, the lot and the applicable zoning requirement. And to your point,
Yeah.
the clearing allowed on each.
Yeah, the
on each
clearing
lot.
is what.
So that's a
concerning me.
subdivision reg. What reg is it? 330?
Actually, part of chapter 247.
The open, oh, it is, it's part of the open space,
Chapter 242,
yeah, chapter 247.
247.
All right.
We did the clearing table as part of the DEIS.
Okay, so you have it.
Yes.
So as you know, there's 10 units in the condominium units in the buildings, and there's smaller, in each, you know, village estate lots, and then smaller lots, and then the larger estate lots. You know, we'll sit down with the staff and go through whatever they are, but we have originally sort of
done an overall site plan as to location of dwellings. So the interesting thing is, different from your normal subdivisions, which you get, which, going back to the clearing, you know, you get your 65% open space, and then in addition to whatever you preserved over there, you get whatever the clearing is on all the individual lots and the remainder of the development. So that's where that overall percentage of clearing comes from. Here, we've done site plan analysis. The interesting thing is, this is not what you saw originally in 2005, just lots, typical 1 acre lots, or what you saw on the Pines, 1 acre lots. And everybody wants their swimming pool, tennis court, or whatever amenities, and then thus you have to deal with that on the clearing of lots. Here, there's not going to be any other amenities on the lots, except for, you know, and they're all in, you know, the development in the common areas already, the amenities that are going to be provided, so you don't have to do extra clearing.
So they're not going to be allowed to put a swimming pool in their backyard or a tennis court or
Exactly.
anything.
So
those
we're
are
going to provide all those
restrictive.
site plans and analysis, and you'll have a lot by lot, so we know there's going to have to be a little flexibility, because we haven't actually physically gone to every site and done that, but there's got to be that flexibility, but it's going to be restricted to the area that's needed for the dwelling, basically, on those lots.
And when will we see that? When will we get
The
a,
final map.
Wayne, just check that
Typically,
table.
that's what you get on the final map. We'll have a whole chart and table.
Check that table that's on the black and white map to the right.
Yeah, this is what we originally proposed. It's already there.
Oh, okay.
This is
Yeah.
the proposed table of lot modification.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's there, that's the first blush at that, but
Yeah,
you know,
I'll
we'll
take
sit
it.
down with the staff and make sure this
Be
works.
sufficient for preliminary.
so what about the site plan with the additional recreational buildings and clubhouse, tennis
Maintenance
courts and all
buildings.
that?
Yep, we're gonna also get to that in,
When?
well,
That site plan?
that site plan, but we'll, and I'm, the next go-round with you, when I give you another draft of this with changes that you've asked for, I will have some other information in there. We're gonna have the Pine Barrens information in there, because they'll come out with their stuff. I will have the site plan stuff in there.
Yeah, just asking on the clubhouse and maintenance buildings, do they have their own set of clearing restrictions? Do they get a section block and lot and then restricted on clearing also? So that they can't expand because the whole development might have more room, but
Yeah, in other words, it's a
Do
site,
they-
looking at that site plan, the layout
they
of
get
all
their
the
own-
accessory buildings, what's the clearing
Right,
restriction
well,
with that?
the-
It's separate and apart from the subdivision, but we're seeing it all together. Are we gonna get maps? Are we gonna get individual
Well, I was
maps
gonna,
here?
you know,
You know?
we're a preliminary approval here.
There
Yeah.
are individual maps,
okay, so
several of them, a stack of maps. This is the criticism from the town engineer. He wanted them smaller, more sheets. We did them on larger sheets, but you can see how much of the development you can fit. So
Right,
this is
well,
the
we're
size of it.
seeing,
So
we're
there's several
seeing
sheets
this for
that
the
show
first
that.
time.
But to your point, the homeowner's area, for example, is this lot that's proposed here. And there's the townhouse parcel and so on. So these will actually show, and they'll be part of a site plan that you'll look at specifically, and it'll show the amount of clearing and disturbance and.
okay, and how much more they can clear or expand. All right.
I mean, typically, preliminary approval is really just to nail down the overall layout of the project.
Which is-
We typically don't get into a heavy level of detail until we get into the final, you know, the covenants, the architecture of the clubhouse, the street trees, those are the things that we all get into final approval. Preliminary is just to nail down the concept, where the road's going, what's the general, the access, I mean, that's
And that's what I'm
really
asking,
important.
Where are the
that's-
lots?
that's-
Where are the residential lots here? Are they, can you point them out?
Sure.
They're all residential.
No, versus clubhouse, tennis courts. I'm talking about where people will be living.
Well, you have a section over here, you have all these over here.
Now, do we have a blow-up of that?
We do, there's.
It's
uh,
right
next
to you.
There's
Black and
multiple
white.
sheets.
There's multiple sheets, but there are blow-ups of that. So, This is going towards the south end. This is at the south end of the development. But this is there's multiple sheets with blow-ups of what's being proposed, this being one of them.
Where are they available? In your office, up on a wall somewhere?
Yes.
He doesn't have enough office
Matt,
for that
did
wall.
Matt bring up other copies? Didn't he come up with reduced versions?
Yeah,
For your reference?
they're hard to read.
Okay.
No, it's a major project, and this is what we're dealing with. Chick, you know?
Well, as
we're
you
not
said, those
done.
are all in Anthony's office.
Yeah, but how do we get those?
But, I mean, we want to, I understand we want to look, we want to really nail down the general concepts. I mean, this access thing and the layout and the second mechanism of access.
Right.
Those are the things we really have to focus on preliminary, you know?
Well, the
Nailing
location,
down.
the location of the clubhouse, and whether the
Yeah.
clubhouse has clearing restrictions or what, I don't think we're asking anything that's
no,
outside
I mean,
preliminary
that's-
at this point.
All of that will be pinned down. It has to be.
It has
Thank
to
you.
be.
That's
Because
all we're
that's
This
covered
board
by
as
the
well as
code.
Pine Barrens.
That's covered by
But
the
we're
code.
due to have a final report, deadline of October 24th, in 2 weeks.
Where does who have?
We're required.
Yep.
Because we've not been offered an extension. So this is a lot of information to either get to us or to have available to us. I don't know if people can come in and take a look at these maps.
I could have a whole set available.
Is there anything online? Have you done them digitally? Can we look at them?
They might be, when I sent them over, I did send them over to whoever scans them for the town, and I thought they did scan them. I'll see if there's a link.
But you won't be able to see them on your screen unless you have one of those.
Yeah, I have a
it's
big
gonna
one.
be
You don't have them digitally, do you?
We
Check
can
in your
provide that,
office?
Sure.
Well, why don't we get them from,
But the most important thing is to nail down, to focus on the layout. We have lots of them.
right, we're trying to
That's what
take
we're
a
trying
look
to
at
do.
it, Dennis.
That's
yeah.
exactly what we're trying to do.
It's pretty hard.
Oh, yeah, well,
It's pretty hard to nail down such a major project.
Go ahead.
Okay. Then we go on to the grading, drainage, and site construction. Big requirement that comes out of this is going to be the SWIP, obviously.
Yeah.
That's going to be a requirement.
It's gonna be serious.
That's almost complete.
And what about landscaping now? Do you have a category here for landscaping?
We will have a category.
Category for landscaping, a category for traffic?
Yep.
Oh, you're right, traffic is not here.
No. These are major components in subdivision and site plan.
Yep. Street trees, which we're, obviously, Dennis was just talking about, we're going to deal with, I put in the requirements. Obviously, we got to have a street tree plan. Suffolk County Department of Health Services, obviously requirement before they could come in with final application. And then there was out parcels, the ones to the south, maybe check these out parcels down here. How do they get access exactly?
We had provided a map. That was one of the reasons why this went from 591 acres to 588 acres. That shows how those can be accessed.
Okay, so there is a map that shows that?
Yes.
I'll make sure
If it has a number, map number 15 or
Yeah,
something?
yeah.
I mean, we have to have some kind of mechanism
like Smith
that
Avenue.
organizes the information.
Right here, right?
Yeah, yeah. I see it.
Are there any other questions? Kathleen wants to talk to us, it's 5 o'clock. Are there any other questions?
The health department comment in terms of the fertigation system. Are they looking for it, or are we looking for it? Who is in this section looking for the fertigation system?
Well, that's part of this board.
All right, so, no, it was under the health department. I didn't know whether that's also, I don't know.
My
why
knowledge,
it's
Health
there.
Department does not get
Okay.
involved with that. That
All right.
would be the town's role, and the town has consultants that help with that.
Do you have health department approval yet?
We're in for the Article 6, that was that checklist that I talked about before. We also have an engineering report for the sewage treatment plant that is submitted and under review.
So when you come back in for final, all those approvals will be in place.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, well, it's included under the Suffolk County Health
Yeah,
Department.
the
That
reason why I
language is
asked
there.
it was that,
Okay.
yeah, it doesn't belong there. It should be somewhere else.
Put it under,
I'll put it in the right spot.
Yeah, could you? Thank you. That's why my confusion of whether the health department looked at fertigation. I didn't think so.
APOD, put it under.
Yeah, you're right.
You could check Sabonic or Gulf at the Bridge. I mean, it's very similar to both of those.
I keep hearing that. Can I get a copy of their plan?
We have it.
Absolutely, it's
Can I
on file.
get, I keep hearing that, and I would like to review the
Well,
plan.
was it-
Could we get
Yeah,
a
there's a
link
full
or something?
groundwater monitoring protocols report. We
Right.
also have one for this project.
Petrovic, but the fertigation that's coming, the water that you're using on this site is coming from different sources, and so
Is it the
it
same?
does affect the fertigation. It's quite different from Gulf at the Bridge.
Yes,
It's
quite
different than
different.
Sabonic.
it's an improvement because it'll remove that.
So
from the
then,
aquifer.
having that is not going to be useful for me to read. If
I don't
it's-
think so.
It's not going to be useful for me to read because it's not the same system. It is the same system?
The difference, we're using all the same requirements. You know, it started with the bridge, you learned something, and then you went to Sabonic and you learned some more. But what was consistent is the integrated turf health management programs
That I've-
that are in part and parcel
Yeah,
of your
that's-
improvement, and the monitoring programs. What is different here is the opportunity to take already high nitrogen water from the adjoining farmlands and use that for fertilization of our golf course.
Right, but that's where our dispersion analysis came in, why we asked for a dispersion analysis. So, and we don't have that.
So
But
I'm just
perhaps
trying
we-
to answer Robin, and
Yeah.
you're not
Right.
going to find anything about
Okay.
fertigation in the other two golf courses.
So really, okay. I
But
keep,
you'll find all the monitoring programs and all the.
Yeah.
it's just the
That's pretty
monitoring. I'm not,
understood.
I thought, because I kept hearing that, well, we've done it there, and I finally said, I got to get a copy of that. So this is a different system than we've done
Yeah.
at the other two. That's-
Well, that's it's the additional use of the fertigation.
It's fertigation and
Okay.
dispersion analysis.
Both golf courses are fertilized.
All right.
It's just the source of the fertilizer.
The source of the
Okay,
water.
I see what you're
We're
saying.
using
That's
the
right.
fertigation method, and, fertigation is the method of
Yeah.
Yes.
applying the fertilizer. So the term isn't properly used. We're using the source from the nitrogen-laden
Farmland to the
water,
north.
as opposed to adding nitrogen and fertilizing in
Right.
different methods. So-
Right. And I think that's when we had requested, when we were reviewing SECRA, looking for a dispersion analysis, but that's another issue. Are there any other questions on this report?
So we're going to get
Anthony?
a section on landscaping and a section on traffic?
Landscaping, traffic,
Traffic.
Site plan.
and site.
And sand.
Patty, could you send us an email reminding us of the 24th if you can?
No.
No.
Well, you wouldn't.
Send one to his wife, too.
Thank you for letting me,
Yeah, that was
I
very
really
helpful.
Thank you.
wanted to stay
Thank you.
quiet because it's staff.
Oh, it's helpful.
Happy to provide information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, in 2 weeks, we'll talk about process. when we-
Yeah.
So, if there's not anything more, I think we've done the whole application. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Phil, and second by Zook, all in favor? And we'll close the session, we'll go into public, exec session.
Executive session.
Can I,
For the record, it's an exemption from the open meetings law. It's not technically exec session.
Right.
It's attorney-client discussions.
Thank you.
may I?
Thanks.
Can we take about 5 minutes?
Sure.
I'd like to see if I still